There we go. Thank you so much for joining us on today's Monday. I should know that today's Monday. Come on, man. Monday edition of the show. Thank you so much for hanging out. What are we, January 13th? We're almost halfway through the month. My goodness, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on a Monday edition of the show. Man, do we have a ton going on today. And because we have, as you can see to the right, a fancy chalkboard, even fancier than the old chalkboard. It is episode 30. Playoffs, obviously. Playoffs. Tons of playoffs. Monday Night Football tonight between the Vikings and the Rams, but it's in Arizona because of the fires, so we'll get into that whole conversation as well. Tons of stuff going on with that. Everybody wants to kind of comp the Brock stuff. Stop it. Everybody wants to comp all these QBs to Brock, so I guess I'll do that as well. Chris Sims is interesting because, as you see on the right, and I'm just going through the rundown before I welcome everybody to the show and hit up the comments and everything. But welcome as always. Chris Sims, good friends with Kyle Shanahan, so everybody's always trying to decipher if he's talking, a talking mouth for Kyle, which he absolutely is not. So we'll get into that as well. 49ers versus, what that means is, no matter the playoff, I always look at the home team versus the teams that are in the playoffs and how far they are away. For example, and it's kind of a fun exercise, and I don't know if you think the same way I do, but when I watch the Warriors, for example, against the higher playoff teams the last couple of years, I'm like, they're not even close. But when I looked at the 49ers over the weekend, especially against some of these teams, I kind of shook my head and said, that team's in the playoffs and the 49ers aren't. So we'll get into that. For as much negative as around the 49ers, I think that they are obviously not that far away. NIL is name, image, likeness. So we got into this conversation on Friday about it. And I was up. I told you at Hanson's Vodka, had a couple of listeners up there. It was very, very cool. I'll tell you about it when we recap the weekend. But I had a friend of mine tell me a story about his daughter who's a volleyball player. And we spend so much time on college football and talk about the NIL on that level. It was really fascinating. So hopefully you'll like this story as well. Sasaki, do we have some false hope in the Bay Area for Roki Sasaki? Today's the 13th, as I told you, if you didn't know. The 15th is the first day. Then he can make a decision. Bryce Eldridge, there's a little bit of news on him as well. But mostly, we're going to be going over the NFL. And I did get some feedback on the Caboose Pistol I'd love to share with you as well. So that's just the rundown, very fast, blah, 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 right? Rundown. Welcome. Love to do that every single day. I'm sorry, Frisco native 415, that you were hungover, because I was in your boat yesterday and I felt it all day long. I'm not going to lie to you, man. It was a rough one, but I normally don't just go, hardcore 2 in a row, and I did that day and night, and it was a little bit rough. JJ Raider, AJ Cruz, Victor is here. Hello, Walter. Who else? We have Hurley Bird is in here. Victor, Joy P, Greg. Who else is here today? If you are new, I'd love to hear from you as well. Enrique, love to see you. Sports Girl for Life, great to see you. Also want to remind everybody, hi, sports fan. Who else are we missing? Anybody? Baba Booey. Good to see you as well. Wes is here. Tacky is here. Great to see everybody. Thank you so much. We are trying to be on time. I have set the show to about 8:05, so it gives you a couple extra minutes to get going on everything. So anyway, do remember, please, if you are new, not only can you catch us on YouTube at John Lund Unleashed Pod, but we're streaming on Instagram, we're streaming on X. We'll soon be streaming on more as well. So there is no excuse. You can take us with you on X after the show. We hit a quick button, as you know, and we got the podcast as well. So whether that's Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're on there as well. So no excuse. We're on a bunch of different forums, stages, etc. And you can catch us just about everywhere. Make sure that you tell all your friends, subscribe, like, all those kind of things. We're on the verge, and we've only been doing this about a month. I think this is our 5th week, I believe. And all the glory goes to you, the sweet, clean listener, viewer, etc. Because we'll have 2,000 viewers, I'm sure, or 2,000 subscribers, I should say, on YouTube by probably the end of the show. We're very close on that. We're going to get more and more people on the other forums as well. So thank you so much for hanging out, for dealing with me, for my weird mannerisms and weird stories and going off on tangents. Like, weren't you just talking about the NFL playoffs? What are you doing? Where are you going? So anyway, we do have a great show for you on a Monday where we recap everything. And it does seem like every time we turn around that we're going to be talking about Brock, and Chris Sims did that. So again, one other thing before we get to everything, please make sure questions, comments, thoughts. I do have the comments up right now, so just hit me up. Hit me up with anything that you got. You don't have to agree. That's why I was talking about. We'll get to the caboose a little bit later on the show, but somebody over the weekend brought up a pretty good point on it. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that in this, at least this show and in this forum, we can have disagreement, and it can be absolutely more than cordial, and we can have fun, and we can laugh and do all those kind of things. We're not trying to get pissed off. We're not taking shots at everybody. This is a safe zone for everybody. So very cool. I know we've established that, but I like to make sure as more and more people join that you understand what we're trying to be all about. You would notice I do have a story to start the show before we get into everything, which is the hat I'm wearing, which is Cal Fire. And if you remember, it's been a while now. I can't remember the exact year because everything runs together. But remember, I know there were fires up in Northern California because when I would walk out of my house in Walnut Creek, it smelled like a campfire outside of my house. So what has this been? 6 or 7 years, maybe 8. Kyle Shanahan, I think, was early in his tenure with the 49ers, and he had a hat, this exact hat on the sidelines, a Cal Fire hat. And I thought it was really, really cool. So I was like, I got to find that hat. And I found it, ordered it, got it. 2018, Joy P, you're 100% right. The Paradise Fires. Thank you, Todd. Absolutely. You guys are the best. So I buy this hat because Kyle had it on the sidelines. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I wore it to a grocery store because, I want to wear hats, and it's not. Oh, by the way, old dirty Hungus. Good. Lund, we getting Saleh, you think? Good morning, y'all. Yeah, we can talk about Robert Saleh. There's my ADD, as you know. But so anyway, I wear the hat to a grocery store, and I'm certainly not trying to offend anyone, and I'm certainly not trying to say that I work for Cal Fire or I'm a badass in that way at all, because those guys and women are badass. I just sit here in a studio and try to entertain people for a couple of hours. We have some fun. I try to take you away from your days, and we just have a great time here for a couple hours. That's my job. That's what I've done my whole life. It's not digging ditches. It's sure as hell not fighting fires. And so I don't claim to be that at all. I've never been. I'm not going to be. And for me, it was just showing support. But I go to this grocery store, and this woman who was married to a firefighter was the checkout clerk. And she looks at me, she goes, "You work for Cal Fire?" And I said, "No, just trying to support the local firemen and the fires and Cal Fire and everything." And she goes, "You shouldn't wear that." She was pissed. She was like, "No, you shouldn't wear that hat. That's an earned hat. That's an earned this, that." And the other night ordered like a sweatshirt too. I think that said Cal Fire, was very similar to this. And I was like, wow. It's like, no, I'm trying to, and she just, well, it's just something to think about. So I thought about it, and I just said, hell with it. I'm going to wear it whenever I want. I'm going to wear it to support the women and men that do that, because these people aren't getting breaks. And again, you know me, I'm not trying to bring real life into the show. I'm just trying to, we have to acknowledge it. I mean, sometimes there are things in life that, although we don't want to talk about them, and although we are the toy box of the world, right? I just wanted to make sure that we brought this up because it's insane. And when I do bring this up, again, people say, well, you're a big Dodgers fan or you're a Rams fan or a Lakers fan. I'm not. I grew up in LA. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Orange County. I know a lot of people affected. I'm not going to sit here and try to say, I know what's going on, because I don't. It's just, I have a lot of friends, and so it's close to my heart, and I'm supporting. I'm not a fireman. Clearly, I am not a fireman. This is all I know how to do. So anyway, just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. And I want to make sure that if, I'm wearing this hat, it's like, Lund's not a no. Are you kidding me? No way, man. So anyway, yeah, it was weird. It was just a weird reaction one time when I wore this thing. And I was like, wow, man, are you kidding me? Like, no, I'm not a fireman. I'm not trying to claim to be a fireman, man. She was just, her husband was a fireman, and she was upset that I was wearing the hat and said that it was like kind of an earned thing. Like kind of, professional athletes, you're on the field, they're on the field, and it's kind of an earned place that they are, and they don't think the media should be in certain places. They don't think we should be in the locker room. They don't think we should be on the field. That's fine. It is earned. I'm not an athlete, hell. So I would probably feel the same way. But again, I'm just trying to trying to get ladies to think he's a fireman, right? Sports fan. Who's not done that, by the way? For our ladies who are also Joy P, for example, for our ladies who are in here, I mean, what guy hasn't gone up to you and said, yeah, you know what? I mean, I wouldn't wear this hat out and say that I was a fireman. I'm not going to do that. But I will not lie that when I was a younger man, I certainly was saying certain things, that what I was and what I wasn't. And what was that? John, what was his name from Saturday Night Live? Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. I'm a fireman. Like, I'm not a fireman. Anyway, done with that. Let's get into the playoffs a little bit over the weekend, and I'd love to get your thoughts. And it's so funny because at least around here, everybody, the thing I got last night, and it was on with Larry Krueger on the Krug Show last night, and I have that posted at John Lund Unleashed pod. If you want to go to the YouTube page, I do have a replay of that if you'd like to discuss. But just as I always do, let me go to today's cover of the show. Monday reactions, which again, everything is open, by the way. Just because I'm talking about something doesn't mean that that's what we have to stick to. We did that a lot on the radio. If you want to talk about something over the weekend, which I have a lot of weekend stories from this weekend and a lot of fun that was had, so I'm sure we'll get to some of those things. But if you have a great story from the weekend or something you want to discuss or something I'm not hitting on, that's fine. I think I'm versed in most things that happened over the weekend, not clearly in your life, but sports-wise, and I try to stay within the demo and everything like that. But as you see in today's picture, those were just quarterbacks, and not all of them that played over the weekend. Lamar is absolutely great, and they're going to play the Bills coming up this weekend. That'll probably be the best game. I put Jayden Daniels up there just because a lot of people, he's early in his career, and I like Jayden Daniels. He's a perfect example of he played at Arizona State. He played at LSU. He stayed in school. I didn't put Bo Nix up there, but Bo Nix, I think, had 61 starts between Auburn and Oregon. It does make a difference for these guys when they're coming in the league. I know that Caleb Williams, and he's going to be fine, but he played at Oklahoma SC. But those two guys, the two best quarterbacks in the draft this year were Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix, and those guys played a ton of games in college. So we're going to get into Jayden Daniels a little bit because I got a lot of reaction and plus just reading things and so forth. Everybody wants to put him on this pedestal already. So we're going to get to that. The reason I put Jordan Love in that picture right there in the show picture today is because a lot of people are like, wait a minute, Jordan Love is clearly not better than Brock Purdy. And all this big debate is going on, and Love's making $55 million. And I want you to stay around and hear what Chris Sims had to say because, like I said, he's always interesting because he's so close with Kyle Shanahan. They were teammates at Texas. If you didn't know, Kyle was a receiver. Chris Sims was a quarterback. And then I got Jalen Hurts there, and I think that Jalen Hurts is going to be one of the reasons why Philadelphia does not make it to the Super Bowl. So if I were you, I would bet on Philadelphia going to the Super Bowl because I just said they wouldn't. Got a great defense, lots of great skill players. Jalen Hurts is still not the quarterback that he was a couple of years ago. And so I want to get into that just because there's always so much reaction to Brock Purdy, even when he doesn't play, about the other quarterbacks and how much they're getting paid and where is Brock, and he's not a top 10 and he's not a top 20 and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get into that quarterback conversation in a minute because everybody loves to have it. But in terms of the weekend itself, there's what was played over the weekend. Washington at Tampa was the best game, even though on paper I was like, I could probably miss that game. But that ended up being the best game of the weekend. Green Bay at Philadelphia. If Jordan Love is competent in that game, Green Bay wins. They had a fumble to start the game, and I don't know if you saw the game or saw the beginning. And I'm not a Green Bay fan. This is kind of what's fun about looking at the playoffs. You don't look at them in a certain way, and I don't care how objective you want to be. You can't be objective when you're watching your team. So I'm watching Green Bay at Philadelphia, and that opening kickoff by Kayshawn Nixon. Yeah, he fumbled, but he got it back. There's a lot of times when you're in those scrums, there is no way to see where the ball is. But clearly Nixon gets the ball back on the opening kick that he fumbles. He's on his back with it, and he's trying to turn over, and then Jeremiah Trotter Jr., bigger, stronger, grabs the ball away from him, but he's already down. So if you can't get that replay right, what replay can you get right? It flipped the entire game. Green Bay fumbles on the opening kickoff. Philadelphia gets the ball, scores a touchdown, and Green Bay's fighting uphill the entire game, and Jordan Love just couldn't get anything going because defensively Green Bay was good. And they made some plays, but still Green Bay with a competent offense, with a competent quarterback, maybe wins that game. Denver at Buffalo, Kansas City, or maybe Buffalo, Baltimore, whatever it's going to be. But Buffalo, Baltimore is going to be great this weekend, but the Bills really look good, and I think Josh Allen should be the MVP. Baltimore, absolutely great. Pittsburgh's a mess. And then this is another reason why we're going to bring up Brock Purdy today, because after Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions, everyone starts calling him the most overrated quarterback in the league, and hell, maybe he is. But as far as Houston is concerned, they're very good. They go into Kansas City. The last time they played them in a playoff game was, remember, 2019. And when the Super Bowl obviously came around in Miami, the 49ers were up on the Chiefs, just like Houston was up on the Chiefs at the end of one quarter, 24-0. And that was the playoff season where Kansas City came back onto everybody. but my focus will be on Justin Herbert because, again, every quarterback in the playoffs is comped to Brock Purdy for some reason. So that's what we'll recap today. If you got any thoughts on any of those games, I'd love to know what they are, and then we'll get into Brock. One aside, I don't know if you saw this during the Philly Green Bay game, but this is awesome. Did you see this thing? So this is Chuck Bednarik. He was a two-way player, as it says right there. This is a graphic that ran on Fox. That's Chuck Bednarik. He's a linebacker slash, I think he played tight end or something. Anyway, he played just about every snap in the 1960 NFL championship. And this is the reason why I show this picture is most of it is funny because, by the way, those are awesome choppers. Like, look at those teeth. My God, those are white. I mean, this is in the 60s. Maybe those were touched up. But my God, man, for a guy who's smoking a cigar and then he's got a lung dart in one hand and a cigar in his mouth there, and he's wearing his wedding ring. I wonder if he wore that during the game. But anyway, Chuck Bednarik played for the Eagles in the 1960 NFL championship against the Packers, in which they won. And so they're showing highlights, and then they show him. And I had to screenshot this whole thing because, for all the health that we talk about, and they put these meters on these guys and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not tired. No, Steph, I'm sorry. You can't play tonight. You are tired. No, but I'm not tired. Yes, you are. The meter says you're tired. You can't play. Or baseball pitchers when it's like, I'm sorry. I know they used to throw 300 innings, but you can throw 150 or your arm's going to fall off. No, I'm fine. Really, I can play. I can throw. No, you can't. So here's a picture of Chuck Bednarik. And obviously they didn't have the type of things they have today, the eating that they have today, all these different things. And I always scratch my head because here's a guy with a cigar, which he won, so he's smoking a cigar. We see that nowadays. But if you go back to, and you probably remember this, was it Len Dawson who was smoking the cigarette at halftime of the Super Bowl? I think it was against the Vikings. And he turned out fine. And Chuck Bednarik smoked. I mean, he was a smoker. You can tell. I mean, he's smoking because he's a smoker, and then he's smoking the cigar because they won. But I am not convinced. I'll take that off the board. I just think it's hilarious. All of it's hilarious. And I am wondering about his teeth, by the way, before I take those are wonderful teeth. That had to be photoshopped, right? Just wonderful teeth. But that's one of the funniest pictures I've ever seen. And it always makes you go back to the fact that are they doing the best thing? Like when they say a guy can only go 200 innings and he can't throw the 300 innings, or you can only go X amount of games in a row if you're a pitcher, or if you're Steph Curry, even though you're in tremendous shape, you're in age 37. You absolutely cannot play tonight. Or, you know what, Steph, I know we need you, but those extra 2-3 minutes, we just can't play you those tonight. And if we lose the game, we lose the game. Sorry. I'm just not convinced. There aren't lesser injuries. I don't mean to go on this tangent this early on a Monday, but there aren't lesser injuries nowadays. There's the same amount. There's nothing that says that the way that we do things is better, even though we have far advanced ways that we eat and the doctors are better and all these different things and the technology and what we can find out about everybody. It's all better. But then I look at Chuck Bednarik and he played two ways and he was a smoker. 2 ways and he's a smoker. And I'm not talking about the cigar. I'm just talking about the lung dart. And it's like, sorry, I'm going to go both ways. Could a guy, I know Travis Hunter is going to come into the league and everybody's going to think he's going to play both ways, and he's not. The NFL is just too demanding. Now, could he do it? Yeah. Back in the day, he would have. That guy did it, and he was a smoker. And I'm not saying that it would be easy to do, and guys are bigger, faster, stronger, so I don't know if he could play, but they just let guys do it. Like, you're playing both ways, like they do in high school. Like, the best athlete in high school plays shortstop, he pitches, he does everything. The best athlete in high school plays both ways on football. And by the way, he plays basketball. Like, he plays every sport year-round. He's the pitcher, he's the shortstop, he's the quarterback, he's the point guard. He does all those things. And then in college, they go, nope. And in the pros, they certainly go, no way. Like, no way. And later on, we'll get into a little bit of Bryce Eldridge. Remember, Bryce Eldridge was a pitcher and a hitter. And it's like, no. Like, how does that work? I'm just wondering. I'd love to talk to a scout. Like, well, the guy was a shortstop and the best hitter. And he was a pitcher and he was the best player out there. But then he has to make a choice. Like, maybe more people could do what Ohtani does, but we just don't let him. They can, right? Ohtani, I'm not saying he's not unique, and I'm not saying he's not a unicorn, but given the chance, couldn't more guys do it? It can't be the 1 in a billion that we're making it out to be, when that guy can sit there and smoke in the 1960 NFL championship game. He can't be the only one, right? I mean, everybody did that. Anyway, I don't mean to be go on such a tangent on that, but that's crazy. I saw that yesterday. I was like, wow, incredible. All right, we are about 20 minutes into the show. Thank you so much for joining us. John Lund Unleashed, John Lund Unleashed pod at John Lund Radio. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let me get out to the lines because I'm going to play this Chris Sims for you. So and that's going to take a minute. So I want to make sure that we're not missing anybody. Let me go to the bottom here and see what everybody's talking about before I get to this Chris Sims. You're going to like this Chris Sims. Well, I'm not going to like it, but it's going to make for a great conversation for us. Nathan says they were just the best overall athletes. Todd likes that. I mean, I'm serious, man. I saw that. I'm sure you saw that during the game, and I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, great point, Jacob. Buster Posey played all 9 positions in a college game. What was that Tony Oliva who did that for the Twins? Look that up. I think that's right. Let's see. Playing both ways. Shout out The Ranch on Netflix. I haven't seen that. What is that? Grocery clerk needs to check herself. Plenty of people wear NYPD and NYFD hats. Good point, Baba Boo. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing because I didn't even think about it. You know how when sometimes you go out and you don't even really think about what you put on? Like this morning, I put this hat on, consciously. A lot of times I just turn around and you can see the hats behind me. A lot of times I just turn around and throw on a hat. Sometimes I think about it. Sometimes I don't. Like Fridays, I might do support day drinking. Some days I might put on the Unleashed hat, whatever. I got a bunch of hats back there. Some days I'm conscious of it, but a lot of times when I just go out, like, it's a lazy Sunday and I just go out, I just throw a hat on because I look atrocious, which is most of the time, but that one in general is. So, oh my God. 49ers diehard. Are you talking about the Mel Gibson with Rogan? That was a crazy deal there. All right, let's get to this. You've been waiting. I've been telling you, and you're like, could you get to it? So I want to keep in mind as we play this, that even though it was the NFL playoffs, even though the 49ers were nowhere near said playoffs, they were 6-11 after all. For some reason, any type of social media that I have gets any way that you can get to me, which is many, gets flooded with Brock is better, or how would you comp Brock to this guy, or this, that, and the other. It's going to be just to get you prepared. And I think you know this, but I'm just going to remind you that it is going to be the spring/summer of Brock. It just is. So last year it was about Ayuk and all these different things. And not only is it going to be about Brock from a local standpoint, you're going to get sick of Brock from a national standpoint. So hopefully they can get this done, because what I'm about to play for you from Chris Sims is from Pro Football Talk. And this is not because Chris Sims is friends with Kyle Shanahan. This is just what it's going to be all summer, because ESPN needs certain things to talk about. And I'm sure that they're going to talk about certain coaches. And I know Rex Ryan wants to be the Jets coach. And the only reason I bring that up is if it's a New York topic, they'll beat it to death. If it's LeBron, they'll beat it to death. If it's Dak, they'll beat it to death. There are certain things that they will just are relentless on. And I've told you this before, that ESPN does gobs of research. They spend so much money on research. So when you tune into ESPN and you say to yourself, because I worked for them for a number of years, when you say to yourself, I am so sick of this topic, you're not. I'm sorry. I know that I'm telling you how you feel, and you're like, Lund, how you don't know how I feel. I am sick of this topic. And I'm like, no, you really aren't. At least you aren't from as a group, because they do this research, and the minute things start going this way, they tell us can't talk about it. We would get an email, a massive email every single day from ESPN research, and they would give us research like this game tonight between the Vikings and the Rams. They must have killed. They probably kill 100 trees to give you. Well, back in the day they did, because you would print it out, but not now. But it just so much research that you're just like, enough already on every single potential topic there could be. And then they give you a rundown of what's hot today. And I pride myself, after years of doing this, I pride myself on knowing what's going on, knowing what I think the audience wants. But this is why I love the real-time chat that's going on right now. If you don't like something, man, I have no problem saying, you know what, I misread that. We're not going to talk about that. What you guys are talking about in the chat is much more compelling, and then we'll switch gears. It's great. Radio isn't quite as much like that, but this is definitely like that. And I love getting the feedback so we can change gears. But ESPN does so much research, and then they tell you, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about today. So, for example, when I was doing a show in Dallas and we were owned by ESPN, this was really before streaming was as huge as it is, because now you can hear it everywhere, but they didn't listen to our shows as much. But they would go back and listen to them, and they would email me and say, you know what, we think you missed the boat here. You should have been talking about that. Should have been, our research says this, this, and this. So my point in saying all that is, even though I was watching the games yesterday and I'm getting all this stuff back on, Jordan Love stinks and Purdy's better, or Justin Herbert stinks and Purdy's better, and all of it has to do with his contract. But because he is the next quarterback up for the big money, ESPN is going to talk incessantly about Brock Purdy until this deal is done. So I'm not trying to burn you out on Brock Purdy talk now. I'm just telling you, not only is this going to be a local story, this is going to be national every day, and all the talking head shows are going to be on it, and they're going to debate this very thing. Who is he better than? Who is he not? Who is he? I think it's a really easy deal to get done. I'm going to play this Chris Sims thing for you. He does bring up a good point, but I think it's a really easy deal to get done because Jordan Love, who makes $55 million, was not very good yesterday. And Justin Herbert, who makes $55 million a year. And I'm not going to get into all the what's guaranteed and all, there's so many different things to a quarterback than just AAV, which is average annual value, what they make per year. But that's really what it comes down to is that's what we talk about the most. How much do they make per year? 55, 65, 40, 30, whatever. That's really what it comes down to is what do they make per year? And that's where the respect comes from. Well, that guy makes more than that. So then this weekend, Herbert struggles, Love struggles. So now everybody's like, I don't think Jalen Hurts was very good against the Packers, and the Packers have a really good defense. But ever since the Super Bowl in the year he got paid, and I think he got a $252 million contract. He's over 50 a year. He's got a ton of weapons around him, a really good defense. I think that he is going to cost Philadelphia in the end. We shall see. I think it's the Lions. The NFC is the Lions to win or lose unless they screw up. We'll see. But anyway, long story longer. Brock Purdy is going to be talked about a lot. But then I hear Chris Sims, this is on Friday after the show, and he is not on board at all with paying Brock Purdy market value. And remember, Chris Sims, Kyle Shanahan are friends from their Texas days, and I played this for you on Friday, and you let me know if you need me to play it again because I'll go pull it up. I don't have it in my videos today, but it'll take me about 30 seconds to find it. But remember, the last time you and I talked is I played this on Friday, and Kyle Shanahan was just so effusive in his praise for Brock Purdy. It was like it was his long-lost son or something. It was just like, oh, my God. Like, he loves himself some Brock, and we knew that, but it was, like, over the top. So this is the polar opposite of that. Take a listen, and then let's discuss.
I know this, Mike, when it comes to the Brock Purdy conversation, I would pay him nowhere near market money, nowhere near. You know my take on all of this. I mean, Tua's the perfect example. Nobody in football was going to give Tua $55 million. Nobody. The Miami Dolphins negotiated against themselves, and they put themselves in trouble. You can't have the highest paid guy on your football team be one of the biggest problems on your team in a big game, let alone he can't stay available for a big game anyways and on the field. Well, with the 49ers, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, certainly. But we know, I think a lot of quarterbacks could go into San Francisco and look pretty good. He's what, a top 20-ish quarterback in football? Top 20? I mean, and to the point of where his contract is and what he's made to this moment, I mean, if I'm the 49ers, I'm offering like $30 million. I'm offering 25. I'm going, go ahead, tell me.
All right. Let me get Let me get Chris Sims off my screen here so that I can talk to you about what he just said there. So let's just take that in. All right. So first of all, I know we say a lot of dumb stuff in the media, and we get, you should be smarter than me, Chris Sims. You played the game. In fact, we should pull up one of his best things of all time. He couldn't remember an offensive play call. You know what I'm talking about? And Gruden lost his mind on him over and over and over again. And that shouldn't hurt his credibility. Hell, I never played quarterback. But when you see somebody, for some reason, this is the way it works somehow in media. Maybe it doesn't, and maybe it's just my perception, but I never played. But Chris Sims did, but at a poor level at the NFL level, played at the University of Texas, and therefore people are like, well, you weren't a good quarterback. You can't analyze this stuff. Like when I was working with Tom Tolbert, people would say that about Tolbert. In fact, Chris Webber did one time, and Tolbert's like, what does that have to do with anything? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. The guy who played the game can obviously analyze it better than I can, but in that case, Chris Sims could not be more wrong. He knows this. He played the game. His dad has analyzed the game as a Super Bowl champion. He knows this. I don't know why he's saying it. I don't know if this is hot take, click, whatever the case may be. That's all it could be. You can't pay Brock Purdy $25 to $30 million. It's just not going to happen. He's never going to come in. Now, I understand what he's saying, and I understand business, which is you're bidding against yourself, and you never want to do that. A lot of times what is good in business or what works in business does not work in sports. And people forget that sometimes, that if, let's say it's, Joe Smith and he's a sales guy, and Joe Smith, doesn't have much leverage, can't go somewhere else, whatever the case may be, and you can lowball that guy. But in the NFL, it doesn't work like that. You can't just lowball Brock Purdy. There's right, there's wrong. There's all these different things. If the 49ers do that, it's going to affect other guys. Look, Brock, we don't think you can go out there and find a deal $25 to $30 million. So let me get this straight. You think that some of these teams, and we could pop this up from the top of the draft. Tennessee's got the number 1 pick in the draft. They have Will Levis, who likes to put mayonnaise in coffee. For that very reason, I wouldn't pay the guy money, but they're going to draft a quarterback at 1. And then New England drafts at what? Is it New England 2? I didn't check it today, but the reality is that there's going to be a team outside of the top 5 that's going to say, God, do we need a quarterback? The Jets are there. There's a number of different teams. The Raiders are there. So you tell me that if the 49ers were to take Chris Sims' advice, terrible advice, horrid advice, horrible advice, stupid advice, and say to Brock, hey, here's 25 to 30. If that was their opening offer, and everybody knows the way things work, agents know, you're not going to give Brock Purdy your best offer at the beginning. But you sure as hell are not going to say to Brock Purdy 25 or $30 million when we saw over the weekend Jordan Love making 55 suck, and Justin Herbert, who I really like, but at the end of the day, at some point, you have to say, Justin Herbert's not getting it done. He just threw 4 interceptions in a playoff game. He's over $50 million. The market rate, as you and I have discussed a lot of times, is $50+ million for Brock Purdy. I didn't make the rules. That's just the way it is. He's the next one up. You have to pay a good quarterback great money. That's the league. Now, if the 49ers want to try to buck the trend and say, we don't think anybody else will come and get you so we're going to offer you $25 to $30 million. Good luck. That a team like the Raiders, a team like the Jets, a team that is not going to get one of the top quarterbacks will immediately call the 49ers and say, we'll take Brock Purdy off your hands. That's just the way it is. Do I think that Brock Purdy is Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? No, I don't. But he's going to make that kind of money because good quarterbacks get paid great money. So for Chris Sims to come out and say that is so stupid, and it hurts his credibility. I understand what he's saying from a pure business standpoint. A lot of things in sports make zero sense whatsoever. He's right. You don't want to negotiate against yourself in business. You don't want to be the only one offering Brock Purdy $50 million. I understand what he's saying about Tua. There was a lot of teams that did not, including the Dolphins, who are like, what do we do with Tua? He's not worth $50 million. He's not. But that's the going rate. So you either pay Tua or you do what? Skylar Thompson's your quarterback? That's their backup, I think. Or is it Hundley? Is Hundley there now? Well, it doesn't matter. Like Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowl quarterback as the backup for the Ravens. What a joke that was. So you're going to go with Tyler Huntley? You're going to go with Skylar Thompson? You can't. Who are the Niners going to go with? Isn't Brandon Allen a free agent? Even if he wasn't, he's terrible. Tanner Mordecai? No, there's not enough of these guys to go around. What position did you play, Chris Sims? Quarterback. And you say that? Look, I like the fact that he'll come out and say, because clearly Kyle Shanahan doesn't feel that way. Kyle Shanahan loves the guy. In fact, I got to pull this up because let's compare and contrast. Even if you're with me on Friday, let me find this. It'll just take a second. If I can find this right cut. It might take longer than I think. I thought it was going to just take like 2 seconds. But the love that Kyle has for Brock versus what Chris Sims just said about Brock is like, I can't believe they could be that good of friends. In fact, I would think that might. Here we go. I got it right here. Man, that was quick. I am good.
Yeah, definitely. Here. It's important to have our whole team back for OTAs. And it's actually, it's last year, it was like 8 weeks after our last game that our guys needed to be back for voluntary work and stuff, which I think is real important. And the year before that, it was like 9 or 10 weeks. So these last two, and then when we all got back, it was like, you could tell we all were back, but, we wish we had a little bit more time. And when I look at a calendar now and realize we have 14 weeks until we need to get back, like I expect everyone to be ready to go and, excited to really get this going and play some football. And that starts with Brock. Like, Brock is the leader of our team. I've loved these 3 years with Brock. I plan on being with Brock here the whole time I'm here. So, like, Brock's been a stud. He's a guy I got a lot of confidence in, and just as a human. But it starts with what he's done on the field these last 2.5 years. And we're capable of winning a Super Bowl with him. We just almost did. And I know he's capable.
All right, so you get the idea there. I mean, the love that Kyle is putting through, is that the end of it? I thought there was even more, but I think that you get the gist of it. I'm impressed that I was able to find that in time. Are you? I'd just like some feedback on that. Some positive feedback, make me feel better about myself. But the whole, I don't need it. I'm just kidding. But for Chris Sims, and if you just joined us, I'm going to play the Chris Sims then really quickly, just to compare and contrast those things. And I think I saw this. Avatar says maybe Kyle told Sims to say that to lower his value. In fact, let me just do this. Let me just pop this thing up because we can do that all fancy now. Maybe Kyle told Sims to say that to lower his value. Believe me, I thought that. I did absolutely think that. Oops, sorry. I popped up something that was wrong there. Sorry. I'm trying to get everything set there, and then I did that. But anyway, yeah, I did think that because as you well know, if you watch or listen to the show with any regularity, I am 100% a conspiracy theorist. I do not think that sports is on the up and up. I think there are things that happen. A lot of it is on the up and up, but if the rest of the world is on the take, I think that sports, given that it's a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry, that there are things that absolutely are there. But for Sims, who is so close to Kyle, for Kyle to say what he just said and then Sims to say this.
Right? So they got some things to deal with there, definitely. And Brock Purdy being the biggest, to your point. And I don't know where it goes. But I know this, Mike, when it comes to the Brock Purdy conversation, I would pay him nowhere near market money. Nowhere near. You know my take on all of this. I mean, Tua's the perfect example. Nobody in football was going to give Tua $55 million. Nobody. The Miami Dolphins negotiated against themselves, and they put themselves in trouble. You can't have the highest paid guy on your football team be one of the biggest problems on your team in a big game, let alone he can't stay available for a big game anyways and on the field. Well, with the 49ers, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, certainly. But we know, I think a lot of quarterbacks can go into San Francisco and look pretty good. He's what, a top 20-ish quarterback in football? Top 20? I mean, and to the point of where his contract is and what he's made to this moment, I mean, if I'm the 49ers, I'm offering like $30 million.
I'm really glad he's not the general manager of the 49ers. And I understand the premise from a business standpoint, but you just can't do that. First of all, if you offered $25 to $30 million in the going rate for a quarterback of Brock's ability, whether he's top 20 or top 50 or top 10 or whatever you want to call him, and I'm not, you know this too, if you watch or listen to the show, I'm not a list guy. I don't give a shit what Chris Sims' list is. I've never cared. I don't care what Stephen A's list is. I don't care what Barkley's list is. I don't care what Sims' list is. It's not a democracy. I love doing this kind of stuff, and lists are fun, and lists get clicks and all these kind of things. But the reality of it is, did you hear what so-and-so said? Did you see so-and-so's list? I don't give a shit. I don't. It's not a democracy. You know whose list matters? Kyle Shanahan's list matters. That's it. Kyle Shanahan thinks that Brock Purdy, as we just played, is really good. And the first 2 years of Brock Purdy's career, he was really good. I'm not defending him. What I'm saying is that the first 2 years of his career, when things were pretty great around him, defense, talent, all these different things, he was really good. When things broke down last year, they were not. So when things break down, Josh Allen's a great example. Brock Purdy's not Josh Allen. Josh Allen loses all these receivers, all these things happen, and the Bills are better. How does that happen? Peyton Manning lost a bunch of talent. The Colts were as good or better. Tom Brady had one really great receiver his entire career, Rob Gronkowski, on the regular. I know he had Randy Moss, but on occasion, he had those guys. For the most part, they spent so much on Brady. And here's where I'm not going to agree with Sims, but here's where he's in the ballpark. But this is just the way the NFL is built. I didn't make the rules. It's just a fact. When you start paying good quarterbacks great, what it means is you're going to lose players around them, and then that quarterback has to be great. So in other words, if you want to be nervous about Brock Purdy, here's one of the reasons you can be nervous. We've talked about this a lot, and you know this. I'm not breaking any news. Again, it's just a reminder. With him getting paid, not this season, now it's not even going to kick in until next season. He's got the year, and then it's going to kick in next season, but about 2 years down the line. So it's going to ramp up this contract. By the third, fourth, fifth year, it's going to be like, oh my God, this is an albatross around our neck. And you're going to lose players. And when that happens, you've got to hope that the quarterback can carry you to a certain extent. Well, what have I been saying this whole time about what Brock's biggest problem, I think, was this season? Trying to do too much. He tried to carry the team and he's not capable. Well, Josh Allen, who you pay that money to, is capable. Mahomes is capable. Lamar Jackson is capable of doing that. Brady back in the day, Manning, all those different guys, Montana, Young. Those guys had talent around them, but if that talent got hurt, they could still do it with lesser talent. That's rare. And that's the problem in the league, is that good quarterbacks get paid great. If great quarterbacks get paid great, they can do it because you're going to inevitably lose players at some point. A lot of the local media has said, well, they're not going to lose them right away because it's going to ramp up. I understand that. It is going to ramp up. And Prague is very smart, and I've told you before, they're going to front load some contracts, back load some, but they're going to have to work around Brock as kind of the base of this house financially, and then how are other guys going to fit around that? But where it really hurts these teams, and he mentioned Tua, and he's right, and some of these other guys, I'm not saying I agree with the premise of $25 to $30 million, don't get me wrong. But where he's right is when you pay these guys great money for being good and you start losing players inevitably in this process, you start to look at the quarterback and you say, you've got to do more. Because we're paying you and we're losing guys. And that's when teams get in trouble. We're paying a good quarterback great. We're losing players. And that guy can't make up for the players that we're losing. The other thing the 49ers have to do in this process, because it's inevitable they pay him, is that they have to draft so well. So this starts now. When this year's draft happens and they're at 11, and I think maybe they should trade back and get more players. And have those players have got to be great. And hell, who needs the first round if you're the 49ers anyway? Outside of Bosa, who's the great first round pick that they got? Like I watched McGlinchey yesterday for the Broncos. They didn't sign him to a second contract. I hope Pearsall's good. But outside of that, I'd take rounds 2 through 7 than I would in the first round for the 49ers. So get more picks anyway. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Brock. I'm a Brock guy. I just think he had an off year. I think he tried to do too much. I think when they get healthy, the defense, that's complementary football. You have defense, special teams, players around you that offensively make you better. But when the special teams stink and Brock's standing on the sidelines going, God, our special teams are atrocious. I've got to do more. God, our defense can't stop anyone. We can't stop the run. We can't stop the pass. We give up all sorts of points. I got to do more. I can't throw the ball away on third down. I got to make a play on third down. Oops, I just threw an interception. That's how it works. So I'm not down on Brock. I thought it was really interesting the way that people approached this weekend and were hitting me up with Justin Herbert. And let me go back real quick, and then I'm going to go out to the lines, because I know a lot of people have a lot to say about the kind of compare and contrast of best friends Kyle Shanahan and Chris Sims in terms of the way that people are looking at things. But let me just pop this up one more time and just look at the quarterbacks from this weekend. Lamar's Lamar. It's different. By the way, the one guy I want to concentrate on, Jordan Love's making $55 million, so there were a lot of comps on him this weekend. Jalen Hurts is making a ton of money. Like I said, Philly won, but he was not great, and I think he may cost them in the end. Jared Goff is an interesting one, because when the Rams traded him, they're like, we can't win with this guy. Remember, they went to the Super Bowl just like the 49ers did, and they lost to Belichick 13-3. They couldn't get anything going in that Super Bowl, and so they thought to themselves, we got to get better at quarterback. I wonder if the 49ers at some point will get to that point. And I didn't think Jared Goff was going to be able to resurrect himself the way that it is, but we talk about quarterbacks so much. But let me go back to Daniels there for a second. So everybody is praising the hell out of this kid, and I like him a lot. And I've already said, playing at ASU, then playing at LSU, and having all those starts, you could tell how composed he is. But this is another thing that we talk about on the show a lot. All right, everybody can have a great rookie year. Everybody. That's not everybody, but you know what I mean. Like, he was the second overall pick. He should be a good player, right? You would think. I mean, they scouted him. They think he was good. But remember, and I think this just because he was in Washington, RG3 was rookie of the year. When Andrew Luck came out, Luck was the first pick. RG3, Robert Griffin III, was the second pick. RG3 was the rookie of the year. They designed the offense, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan. They designed the offense around his strengths, which was a lot like Jayden Daniels. He could run. He could do all these different things. He had a really strong arm, was great at Baylor, and then he gets hurt. Haloti Ngata, if you remember that from the Ravens. Remember that dude? Haloti Ngata lands on Robert Griffin, hurts his knee. Then he plays in a wild card playoff game against the Seahawks. And if you don't remember that game, it was the game in which Trent Williams got in Richard Sherman's face. Remember that after the game? Sherman's talking all this trash and Trent Williams just shoved him right in the face. Well, RG3 got hurt again in that game on a bad field. He twisted something or other, and he was just never the same. And I hope that doesn't happen to Jayden Daniels. My point in bringing it up is we are so quick to anoint, right? Jayden Daniels is awesome. He's awesome. He had a great rookie year. I'll give him that. But as we talk about often, and I think that baseball is the best comp to this. All right, you come up, Elliot Ramos, and you're just crushing it. And all of a sudden they start to look at some tape, and then they're going to say, oh, you know what? Up and in fastballs. He's got a hole there. And they pound you until you figure that out. Well, one of the other things beyond Brock Purdy trying to do too much is these teams scout you and scout you and scout you, and it starts within your division. So when you win the division every year and you have shorter and shorter off seasons, those teams who have the longer off seasons in your division, let alone the rest of the league, but it starts in your division. They go, okay, how can we stop these guys? And the head of the snake is the quarterback. So they drill down on film the entire offseason and go, this is what we think we can do. And when they find that problem with you, and most every athlete has it, that's why there's the elites who they've tried everything and it still doesn't work because Josh Allen can run, Josh Allen can throw, Josh Allen can run you. Like there's everything. Same with Lamar, same with Mahomes. We tried it all. Steph Curry on a local level is the best example of it. Remember when you could muscle Steph Curry? Remember when you could bump Steph Curry? Remember when you could kind of physical Steph Curry? Can't anymore. What else you got? Like they've tried everything on Curry. And now into his age 37 season, it's you're almost relegated to the fact that he's going to do a certain amount of damage to you, and you just try to hope that the other guys around him aren't good that night too, because there's really, when he's hot, there's honestly nothing you can do to stop him. And that's the greats. That's the elite. So what teams do is, in this offseason, specifically Dallas and Philadelphia, the Giants, or these teams in division will start working on how to beat you and where your weaknesses are. Well, where do you think the weaknesses are for Jayden Daniels? He's thin. Teams are going to hit him next year. When he goes out and he's right, they should have already done this, but it's kind of like RG3. They're going to hit him and try legal ways to do it. They're going to see where he likes to go with the ball. Brock likes to go inside the numbers. Brock doesn't have the biggest arm strength. So teams will go and they'll figure you out. And then it is up to you then to adjust back. So I like Jayden Daniels. I'm not saying I don't, but the anointment of rookies, of young players before this process is done is one of the most annoying things to me in all of sports. You can get off to a great start. Lots of guys do. You know, I mean, look at Luis Matos. Remember the weekend? Was it last year that he had the 12 RBIs in a weekend and we're like, put him in the All-Star game, man. Put him in the Hall of Fame. That dude is awesome. Pencil him into center field forever. Not so much. Teams adjust. You have to adjust. It's this whole process. And then maybe after a 3 or a 4 year period, you can say, this is what this guy is. We know what Mahomes is. We know what Jackson is. We know what Josh Allen is. We know what a lot of these guys go through sports. They've tried. They've done all these different things. And at some point, that's when you anoint someone and say, that person is great. There's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do to stop that guy. I mean, even if you go back to the days of Michael Jordan, the Pistons tried to beat the hell out of Michael Jordan. All right, we can't do anything about this guy. He's really, really good. Let's just, forearm shivers, the Jordan rules, those kind of things. He still got past that. So then you just go, okay, he is great. We're going to do the best we can, but we're relegated to the fact that he's going to crush us. And so I'm not angry with Jayden Daniels. I hope he's a great quarterback. But yesterday, as we went through the quarterbacks of Love and Herbert, and everyone saying that Brock is better than this guy, but not as good as this guy, and the flavor of the week now is Jayden Daniels, who's a great player. But let's see him next year. Let's see him when the teams adjust to him. Let me see when the teams in division, and then what other teams do is they learn from those teams, and then they start doing the same things. And then if he can adjust back to that, because now there's another thing about Washington. They will then become the hunted, not the hunter. Oh, we know you're good now. You're 12-5. That happens to teams all the time. It happened to the 49ers. When you're every team's Super Bowl, as the 49ers were, or the Warriors for a long time, like even now, the Warriors have kicked so many teams' asses in the NBA, and Steph Curry skipping down the court and laughing about it and all that kind of stuff. when they go into an arena, and as long as they have Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, and especially Steph Curry, they will be a team's measuring stick. I don't care how bad they are. They can be 10th place in the Western Conference, and they walk into, I don't know, just because it's the first team that pops into my mind, Cleveland, and even though there's no LeBron and there's no Kyrie and there's no real rivalry there, Steph Curry is on the other team, coached by Steve Kerr and featuring Draymond Green bitching and moaning at officials. They're going to play the Warriors harder. That's just how it is. Fans are going to come out. There's going to be buzz in the building. So next year when Washington and Jayden Daniels comes into a place, it's not going to be, oh, these are the Commanders and they're 4-13 and they suck. We got an easy win. Let's just throw our cleats out on the field. It's going to change. So it's fun, and I get it, and he's good, and I'm not saying he's not. But when I start seeing things where Jayden Daniels is better than Brock Purdy, and again, I don't care what anybody's list is. I'm simply saying that you really can't, even though we don't have the luxury in this business to do this, I can't sit here and talk in front of you every single day and say, well, we'll see. They go, dude, have a freaking opinion. Get off the fence post. You got splinters in your ass. What's wrong with you? Say something. Give us an opinion. My opinion is I like Jayden Daniels, but if you put him in the oven, it's like, okay, and you check. And like when you make a cake or something, you got to put a toothpick in there, and if it comes back with some cake on it, then you got to cook it a little bit longer. Terrible analogy, but it's the first one that came to mind. You got to bake it a little bit longer. So he's not a finished product. We'll find out in 2 or 3 years when teams are able to adjust to him and say, okay, but the first thing that's going to come to mind for Jayden Daniels, it's simple for me. They're going to go Steph Curry on him. He's going to be hit. It's going to be physical. They should have already done this, but remember they tried to do, remember Kaepernick, how good Kaepernick was? Woo, Kaepernick is great. He's the next big thing. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and in some way, shape, or form, it said something like, you were right, Jim, or something like that when they replaced Alex Smith. Was he right in the long term? Not so much. Because what started to happen? They were running the zone read, and Baltimore was the first team to do this, and it was on Thanksgiving years and years ago. They started hitting them. Terrell Suggs was playing edge, and they just said, we don't care if he has the ball or not. Hit him and hit him and hit him and hit him. And not only did he not want to get hit anymore, the 49ers said, we're not going to put our quarterback in this kind of situation constantly. We're not doing this anymore. So we'll see. And I didn't know that I was going to go on an 8 to 10 minute rant on Jayden Daniels because I like the kid. I do. But the thing that bothered me is he's already better than Brock Purdy, when the fact is Brock Purdy now is in an adjustment period of his career going into the 4th year. Throw the contract aside for a minute. He's got to make some adjustments. He's got to watch some tape. He's got to settle down. He's got to mature. He's got to understand that he doesn't have to do so much. And I think that Brock Purdy is going to come out of the other end on this thing and be a better quarterback next year. And a guy like Chris Sims is probably going to have to eat his words because he's better than the top 20 quarterback. And I'm not saying that because I'm sitting here in the Bay Area. If he wasn't, you know me, I would tell you. I'd say this is going to be a horrible contract. Now, is it questionable the kind of contract that they're going to give Brock Purdy? Because they are. Is there downside on this contract? 100%. But it's not ridiculous. It's not like he's going to be terrible. It's not like he's going to cost the team long-term to me. You can't offer him $20 million, $25, $30 million. I mean, you and I would be doing backflips. We'd won the lottery at that point, but my God. All right, what do we got? Sorry, I went on a tangent and didn't check the the chat forever. Good morning to you. We are about 54 minutes into the show, and I'm not even halfway near through the stuff we got to get through. By the way, Skills Report is my guy. I got to say, man, I'm going to pop you up there just because you say I'm so old. I remember watching Phil Simms play. Hell, dude, I remember Phil Simms in the Super Bowl going 22 for 25 for the Giants. The dude was great. I'm not a huge Phil Simms fan as a commentator, but he was, he came out of Morehead State in 1979. It was like, who is this dude? And he was really good. But Skills Report, the reason I popped that up is you hit me up over the weekend at John Lund Radio on X and you kind of showed me some screenshots of your buddies who said, hey, man, you got to be on this show. You got to watch this show. And I know you don't like getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's not your bag. But I appreciate you getting up, and thank you for not only, and I'm only bringing this up, people, because friends of mine spread the word, and now Skills is a regular listener and watcher of the show. And so I really appreciate that. And it's really cool that you're getting up at 8 in the morning. Some people are early birds. I am. I get up at 5 every day. I can't help it. Some people just hate it. Some people are like, no. 5 in the morning? What are you, insane? I can't help it. I can't sleep. Let's see. Let's pop some other stuff out here. Anyway, Brock always seems to get things going. And, here I am an hour in the show, and I've only talked about Brock, and I don't mean to, and I didn't mean to go on this big of a tangent. But yesterday was really interesting because whether the Niners are playing or not, everyone wants to comp him to all these quarterbacks. And Herbert wasn't very good, and Love wasn't very good. And despite the fact that Philly won, I don't think Jalen Hurts was very good. But I'm telling you right now, man, they're paying him. So, Chris Sims, you played the position. You know the league. He's saying that stuff for clicks. Got to be. Paying Brock Purdy $25 or $30 million. Best of luck with that. And all the different things that go along with it. Could you imagine somebody wanting to come to the 49ers after they offer Brock Purdy $25 to $30 million? You got to look at the big picture on this stuff, too. So, let me see what else. What do we got out here? How much? Hi, Coach. You say, how much will Daniels get paid when his rookie deal ends? Based on this year, he'll get a ton of money. But it's not based on 1 year, and we'll see what he does. Look, maybe he's the next thing at quarterback. A lot of people are – see, here again, we do this for a living. I do this for a living, and you've got – people love this stuff. People love this stuff. Who does he comp to? Well, he's Lamar Jackson. He is not Lamar Jackson. Like, show some respect to somebody. Lamar Jackson's a multi-time MVP. Could be a Super Bowl winner. I know that he hasn't been the greatest in the playoffs, and a lot of people talk about that. And I understand that. When you go from a certain level to this, it's because your playoffs are that great. So Lamar has not accomplished that part of it. But I understand because we have to do this. Oh, we got to comp him to Lamar Jackson, or we got to say he's the next greatest, this, that, or the other. You can't say, well, let's wait 2 years, put Jayden Daniels back in, let him cook a little bit more, and then come out, and then we can say what he is. We have stuff to do all the time. We have shows to do all the time, so we got to make sure that we talk about something. So I understand it. Let's see. What's up, Antonio? Good to see you. What else do we have today? Pro Football Focus. Pineal says Pro Football Focus and the other metrics should show. What did you say there? That the offensive line was the absolute shittiest performing group this year. You talk about the Niners. That wasn't great. By the way, one thing, and then I'm going to make you guys laugh. Did you guys see Zane Gonzalez, the former 49ers kicker, and how many times he rubbed his head? Somebody ask him about that in the post game on that? By the way, Collinsworth, you can like Collinsworth or not. He called that the divisional doink, and he said that, like, if you come up with divisional doink 10 minutes after that kick, that's one thing. But, like, right when he kicked it, he said divisional doink. That was pretty good. And the fact that you can't know that it's going to doink, so it's not like it was in the back of your head going, if he doinks this off the upright, I'm going to call it the divisional doink. That was pretty good. That was actually really good. That was actually a really good line. So let me do that. Let's just take a break from Brock for a minute. We've Brocked ourselves for the first hour, and I have so much other things to get to. Anybody else want to discuss Brock? Because we have other things we need to talk about. Oh, that's a great point, Kid. Let's see. That's Brock. Where's Kid? Still getting this all down. Stroud definitely regressed, and Bryce Young improved. See, but that's you make a great point, Kid. So C.J. Stroud last year was probably what Jayden Daniels is this year. Is that fair to say? Everybody was like, C.J. Stroud's the next this or that. When the list that I don't care about came out at the end of the season, I think C.J. Stroud was like a top 5 quarterback. And I'm not saying that C.J. Stroud isn't a good quarterback. And you know what? They go into Kansas City this weekend. It's what you do in the playoffs. I really don't care what you do in the regular season. What do you do in the playoffs? And if you want to rip Brock Purdy and not give him, or not want to give him the money like Chris Sims does not, the biggest charge against him, and he did mention this, is that Brock doesn't win in the playoffs. No, that's not right. That's totally wrong is what that is. Brock has not come back in the playoffs. Brock has not led them down to that winner. For example, in the Super Bowl, and we've talked about this a lot last year in Vegas, that needed to be a touchdown drive, that first drive. And, it's on Kyle, it's on other players, but the reason why Brock is going to get all this money is because that's pressure money. $50 to $55 million. Do you know what that is? That's the quarterback. Yeah, he gets paid a lot, but you know what the quarterback has to do? On a play in which a receiver runs a wrong route and you throw an interception, what has to happen? That's my fault. I got to make a better throw there. And then he goes to the receiver behind the scenes and said, look, I just protected your ass. You owe me. But that's why he gets paid the money. You can't go out. You're supposed to be a leader of a team. Brock is that. It's kind of like what Steph Curry is. You're the CEO of this team. So you get paid a ton of money. So the quarterback has to take all the flack. The quarterback has to when something's wrong offensively, it's not about the offensive line. It's not about a running back. It's not about a receiver, even though we're smarter and we know that. To the casual fan, you just look at the quarterback because that's the lowest hanging fruit. And whether a team is good or bad, the average fan says it's the quarterback. And so when you're good, yeah, you get all those accolades, and that's why you get paid the money. But when you're bad, which is most of the time because only one team wins the thing every year, well, clearly Brock sucked. So when I say that it's that last drive or the first drive, I should say, in overtime against the Chiefs, it's not all on Brock, but that's why Brock's going to get paid money because, Brock, you had to lead the 49ers into the end zone because you knew Mahomes was going to get a touchdown on that other side. That had to be a touchdown drive, not a field goal drive. Yeah, Kyle's involved. Offensive line's involved. Receivers are involved. Running backs are involved. Everybody's involved. But everyone's going to point at you. That's a great point somebody just had. And the chat line's going crazy. But there you go. I think I can catch this one. Let me see. My mouse is going a little bit crazy, but let me see if I can get that up. Just like with Jimmy. Great one, 7-6. Exactly. If you go back to Super Bowl 54 in Miami, is that game all on Jimmy? I mean, his numbers in the fourth quarter, I don't have them in front of me, but like Jimmy in the fourth quarter of that game against the Chiefs was atrocious. But I don't know if somebody ran a wrong route. I know. The offensive PI, by the way, for George Kittle, which nobody talks about at the end of the first half, that was not offensive PI. So that could have cost him. But Jimmy was terrible in the fourth quarter. There's no question. But I don't know who ran wrong routes. Has Emmanuel Sanders ever said anything? Was he was anything wrong with his route? I don't know. Did he have to get the ball away more quickly than he wanted to because there was pressure on, one of the offensive linemen screwed up and there was pressure? I don't know, but I tell you this, Jimmy Garoppolo's not going to come out and say it. That's the quarterback. That's why he gets paid. Hey, Jimmy, on that play, did you get, more pressure than you thought? Yeah, you know what? The right tackle sucked. McGlinchey gave up some pressure, so I had to let that ball go early. We don't know that. But that's why guys like Patrick Mahomes, and then we go back to who's elite. Mahomes had Bosa in his face. Eric Fisher held on that play on Jet Wasp, and yet Mahomes backed up, and his arm strength is so good that he still got the ball away, as I'm trying to mimic that throw. He still gets the ball away, but that's the elite players. No, that's the guys going to the Hall of Fame, and that's why they win games. So anyway, there's another tangent on Brock I said I wouldn't go on. All right, let's make you feel better today because here I am with so many Brock discussions that we were having. HR says McGlinchey does suck, though. Yeah, he did give up was it Von Miller that he gave up a sack to? And I kind of laughed because I knew that somebody would say that today. By the way, I'm with you, Coach. You just said trade down from 11 for the 49ers. I would agree with that. All right, are you ready to count? Let me ask you, are you ready to count? Because this happened yesterday, and you're probably going to know. You probably already know what I'm going to play here. Jackie says, Bosa getting held? No way. I know, right? All right, so this is Zane Gonzalez, and for some weird reason, because, again, I think you look at the playoffs the way I look at the playoffs, which is how would my team do in this situation? So if you're a 49ers fan, for example, you're watching the playoffs going, how would my quarterback do here? How would my team do here? How far is my team away? So it all goes back to the 49ers is my overall point here. And when Zane Gonzalez kicks a field goal, a guy who was in camp with the 49ers, everybody says, well, Zane Gonzalez can make kicks. How come Jake Moody can't? So it goes from the quarterback to the kicker, anything related to the 49ers you want to relate to. So it's not like Zane Gonzalez drilled this thing down the middle. It was the divisional doink, and he doinks it off the right upright. It goes through, and they beat Tampa Bay. That would be a horrible way, by the way. Can you think of a worse way to have your season end? Well, yeah, Patrick Mahomes throwing a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Never mind, I take it back. Anyway, let's count how many times Zane Gonzalez, this must be some OCD weird thing, scratches his head, fixes his hair, and he's got super short, not maybe military hair, but it's pretty short. This is just weird. Watch this.
Sixth is Gonzalez. The first time he's kicking in the NFL since 2021. These now 6 games for Washington, and he's got a chance to get the Commanders a playoff win.
Okay, let me play it again because I forgot to count. And he was like 5 in by the time that I started to go, I'm supposed to count this.
6 different kickers. The
1,
sixth is
2,
Gonzalez.
3, 4, 5,
First time
6,
he's kicking in the
7,
NFL
8,
since
9,
2021.
10.
These now 6 games for Washington.
Wait,
and he's
11,
got a chance
12,
to get the Commanders
13,
a
14, 15,
playoff win.
16, 17. 17? Am I wrong? Did you count different? 17? Yeah, Jacob, he's tweaking hard. Like, I don't know what's going on. When I saw him do that, when I was watching this, I'm like, there's no way that guy's making that kick. Like, he's freaking out. And I'm going to play it one last time. And so not only do I want you to count, but he kind of looks like Steph Curry, doesn't he? Oh, wait. Let me put it back.
6 different kickers. The
1,
sixth is
2,
Gonzalez.
3, 4, 5,
First time
6,
he's kicking
7,
in the NFL
8,
since
9,
2021.
10.
These now 6 games for
What?
Washington. And
11,
he's got a chance
12,
to get the Commanders
13,
a
14,
playoff
15,
win.
16, 17. I think 17. But he does look like Steph Curry, too. 17? Like, if I was a Washington fan and I was watching that, I'm like, he is not making this kick. He is not making this kick. And I didn't think he would. After watching that, I'm like, whoa. Yeah, let me pop this one up. You're right. Old Dirty Hengus says cocaine's a hell of a drug. Yeah, it's something. I mean, I've never seen that. Like, I understand, people are nervous and all that kind of things, and we all have a kind of a nervous, I don't know, twitch about us or whatever the case is. But my goodness, man. The guy doesn't even hardly have any hair. It was, I'm not going to say it's military cut, but it's like, it's short. It didn't move. HR says, my dog does that when he has to piss. That was that was as twitchy as I've ever seen. That was weird. I don't know if he was on drugs. I have no clue. I don't know Zane Gonzalez from, whatever. But that was wild. 17? That dude, man, it's like, bro. Like, if I was on his team, I'd be like, let's settle this down, dude. Let's settle down for just a second. All right, a couple other NFL things I want to get to you. And again, hit me up on the text line here. It is at John Lund Unleashed, at John Lund Unleashed pod. Please follow us, like us, subscribe to us on YouTube. We are also live on Instagram and X today. We are that way every single day. We get here at 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. We go for as long as it takes. Usually Mondays are pretty long. We are an hour 7 into this thing, and I have a lot more stuff to do. If you want to talk about different things, that's fine. Hit me up on the chat line. We don't have to talk about what I'm presenting to you, but obviously in the NFL, with the NFL playoffs, that's a ton of what we'll do today. There is the bracket, as you can see. So the Texans and the Chiefs, the Ravens, I guess that was before the Ravens are taking on the Bills. That is going to be an incredible game. Washington now taking on the Lions. I don't give Washington any chance in that game whatsoever. I could be 100% wrong. And then tonight, which we can get into, the Vikings versus the Rams, and that's in Arizona because of the fires, and they're going to take on the Eagles. I think if the Vikings win that game, they're going to beat the Eagles. If the Rams win that game, then I think the Eagles win. But I think the Vikings are good. I think it's going to be Vikings-Lions in the NFC Championship game, which means it'll be anything but. And I hope that it's Kansas City and Buffalo. Not that I don't think Baltimore could win that game, because I do believe Baltimore can go into Buffalo and win that game. But Kansas City Buffalo is just one of those classics. And I hope that Josh Allen can finally get over on the Chiefs. And they probably will, because every time the 49ers have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, they have to play the Chiefs. And then, like, the one year they didn't in this run with Kyle Shanahan, it was the Rams versus the Bengals. It's like finally the Chiefs out of the way, and then the 49ers can't get there. So it's going to be the same thing. The Bills are going to be there. And it's like, God, they don't even have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. So that's what's going on as far as NFL. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And then this is always, I'm a big fan of doing this. We saw this over the weekend. Now, the Patriots' job is filled. That's Mike Vrabel, the former Tennessee coach and Patriots linebacker. That was no surprise. The minute you saw Gerard Mayo get fired in New England, you knew Mike Vrabel was going to be the head coach there. But if you had an opportunity to get one of these jobs, so the Bears has Caleb Williams in place, Jacksonville, and whether this is a negative or a positive, they've already got their quarterback in place. The Jets have no quarterback whatsoever. The Raiders have no quarterback whatsoever. And the Saints, Derek Carr, they have no quarterback. I'd love to know who my quarterback is going to be, but I don't love Caleb Williams. And even though I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be really, really good, he hasn't been. Now, maybe there's other problems other than that, but I'd like to know who my quarterback was going to be unless I had a really high pick. Now, New England's interesting because they have Drake May, whatever you think of him, and they have like $125 million in cap space. And in case we still have good friends of ours that are Raiders fans, and my son is definitely one of those, Raiders are interesting in that Ben Johnson, who's the big hot candidate, and remember Ben Johnson last year had some weird interviews, and so he ended up staying in Detroit as the offensive coordinator. And then one of the worst lies of all time is when a coordinator says, I just wanted to stay here. We got unfinished business here, and I just wanted to stay here. When you become a head coach, no matter how bad the situation is, and people say this all the time, well, maybe it just wasn't the right situation for that guy. The right situation is financially you're set for life. So if he gets, let's just say that, because this is what the Raiders do, they fire coaches after a year or two, Mark Davis. So Josh McDaniels is still getting money, and Antonio Pierce is still getting money, and Gruden's got the lawsuit, and he's still getting $10 million a year. The best job out there, and not just in sports, in life, is getting fired from a job in which you get paid millions of dollars for doing nothing. And so I said this on Friday. Robert Saleh is getting paid $20,000 a day for like the next, 3 years from the Jets to not work. And so if he becomes the defensive coordinator of the 49ers, that money is offset. So he's essentially, because he's not going to make more money as the defensive coordinator of the 49ers than he would have being the head coach of the Jets. So he's working for free. He could go to a beach, lay there, hang out, buy a place, lay in a hammock all day long and not do one thing but drink tropical cocktails. And he would make as much money as he's going to make for the headache of having to sleep on a cot in Santa Clara. So when people say, well, and I think the same thing, Robert Saleh is going to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. I think so if he's just absolutely a junkie and has to get back into coaching. Now, me, I'm different. I love doing this every single day, but if I was getting paid $20,000 to go lay on the couch, I don't know, as much as I love you deeply, very, very deeply, I love you. But man, $20,000 a day to sit around, I mean, I don't know, that's pretty enticing to me. Wouldn't you do that? Would you go be the defensive coordinator if you weren't going to make any money and you were going to work your ass off? Now, it's a little bit different because I think in a couple of years, what he's going to do is he's going to get paid again, get back into the coaching cycle, and then he's even going to get more money. And then when he gets fired, he's going to be able to get more money for sitting on his butt again. So my point in saying all that in a roundabout way is that Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Lions, who was such a hot commodity last year, apparently blew a bunch of interviews and then afterwards said, I just want to stay. And I'm sure he's getting paid very well for being the offensive coordinator of the Lions, a few million, $3, $4, $5 million. That's not chump change. You and I would love to have that job. But the reality is that he would have gotten a job that would have probably, his contract would have been in the $40 or $50 million range. And those are guaranteed contracts. Guaranteed contracts. So you're fired after a year or two, whatever's remaining on your deal, $20, $30 million, you get that money. That's a better job than being the offensive coordinator for the Lions. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm just giving you a little bit of again, that reporter thing and all that kind of behind the scenes and pulling back the curtain. Anybody who says that they are content being where they are, if they're not a head coach, they're an OC, a DC, a special teams guy, whatever. Yeah, I just didn't really want that head coaching job. It really wasn't a good fit for me. They're all a good fit for you because if you're a really good coach, you'll get another chance. Like Robert Saleh is getting another chance because they know that the Jets are garbage. If Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, went from the Lions to the Raiders and got fired after a year, regardless of Tom Brady is there or not, and that's a fascinating story in and of itself, and he gets fired after a year, then that's on the Raiders. He's not hurt by that. Like Josh McDaniels has had enough time. It's like, yeah, okay, you suck. And he might be the offensive coordinator for Mike Vrabel in New England. I don't know. But as far as you're blaming the team. Like Antonio Pierce was fired and on and on and on and on. They're firing coaches every single year. That's on you. Like when the 49ers had Harbaugh left, then Tom Sula came on, which was a joke, and then Chip Kelly comes on, then it starts to be about your organization. And that's why when people talk about, Kyle Shanahan's getting fired, or I saw today, Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. One of the talking head shows said Mike Tomlin should be fired. Or somebody said that the Cowboys, this was on the Fox show, and I think it might have been Howie or Terry or one of those guys who are absolutely insane, said that the Cowboys and the Steelers should swap coaches. That because Mike McCarthy is from the Pittsburgh area and Mike Tomlin has just been there too long for the Steelers and they can't win, that Tomlin should go to the Cowboys and McCarthy should go to the Steelers. I'm like, are you insane? Mike McCarthy is a great coach, and one of the reasons why the Steelers are successful year in and year out, even if they don't win in the playoffs, is that they don't, in a hair-trigger way, fire their coaches just because on a whim, which leads to having to rechange your whole organization, different kind of players. They have a philosophy there. And so I'm going back to the 49ers in this. They're not going to just fire Kyle Shanahan because he loses in the playoffs. They get there every single year. So anyway, my whole point in that whole thing was, what's the best job right there? What one would you want? Like, would you want Caleb Williams? Would you want the Bears? Because you are directly tied to your quarterback if you were a head coach. So Mike Tomlin, you want to bitch and moan about Mike Tomlin? His two quarterbacks were Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Best of luck. I think I wouldn't want a quarterback. Like, let's say that Vegas is the best job. I don't know that I would want my quarterback already there unless he's really, really good. And in every of these cases, and, when we talk about quarterbacks all the time and people say, why are you talking about quarterbacks all the time? It's overrated. Look at those 6 jobs that were open. Caleb Williams was the first pick, but he sucked. Trevor Lawrence had a terrible year. Even though he was the first pick, he sucked. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers was terrible. Drake May's a rookie and only played about half the year. The Raiders had Gardner Minshew for a lot of the year, and the kid out of Purdue, O'Connell, was terrible. And the Saints had Derek Carr and, and Jake Haener, and I like Jake Haener. He's a Bay Area guy from Danville, but they didn't have a good quarterback situation. You could have everything else on the team work, and if your quarterback sucks, you're looking for a new coach. This is how it goes. All right, let me go out. I've had enough of myself talking. Let's go out and hear what you got going on today. And by the way, we haven't even gone over the weekend. I'd love to go over your weekend and see what kind of a weekend you have. So I might need a sports break for maybe 60 to 90 seconds to tell you about the weekend. Great weekend. Let's see. Joe Schmo says Jags might be good if they can get Lawrence right. I agree with you 100%. Jags might be a good job. Although if Trent Baalke's staying, that's the thing, is I can't believe they're going to keep Baalke. Like, there's no way. Like, if I'm a coach and they're saying, well, Trent Baalke's staying around, and it's like, well, obviously I'm going to lose a power struggle to Trent Baalke, because as bad as the Jags are, Trent Baalke is like the ultimate cockroach. It's like, how is this guy continuing to be here? How does he survive? Clearly, I'm not going to survive because this guy's got pictures of somebody. Jason says, is McCarthy out in Dallas? I don't know. I haven't seen that. Maybe that happened today, but Jerry Jones, as I told you, he does not play well with others, and he likes someone who is subservient to him, and he certainly does not and will not hire a big name coach, and he kind of likes it. And if I was a Cowboys fan, I'm not an advocate of, you got to leave your team, but as long as Jerry Jones is around, it's kind of like the end of Al Davis with the Raiders. They're not going to be any good. I got fired and got a $200K severance. Life was good for a couple of years. Exactly. It's hard to be motivated when you're getting paid that kind of money. And Robert Saleh is just a different dude. I mean, he went right to the Packers and his buddy Matthew LaFleur, and said, hey, I want to help you out. If I was Matthew LaFleur and I was a really good friend of his, and they are good friends, I'd say, dude, you're going to a beach. You're not coming here to help me with this defense. Are you insane? Yeah, Antonio, like you said, $20K a day to stay home. Where do I sign up? Right. That's the best job there is. I got a great job. I'm the CEO. I got a great job. I'm the quarterback. I got a great job. No, man, the best job is what Robert Saleh has right now. $20,000 a day, 7 days a week to not work. But he's just a different dude. Joy says, got to go for the Vikings tonight against the Rams in Arizona. This is going to be a fascinating one, because I think you and I'll make a prediction for tomorrow's show. And I think that I'm one of the worst predictors of all time, but you're well aware of that if you watch or listen on a regular basis. There's some great text right now, or great stuff on the chat line right now. And I'm not going to get distracted as I often do. I'm going to try to finish a thought before going to another. But I have a prediction for tomorrow's show, which is we will be talking about Sam Darnold tomorrow, whether it be in a negative or positive way, because weeks ago when we first started this whole thing, you and I together, I was like, well, maybe Sam Darnold, maybe they, JJ McCarthy, top 10 pick of the Vikings. I think it was 9th last year. He's going to be the quarterback, not Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's so good that they're going to either entertain trades for JJ McCarthy, or what I think is they're going to make Sam Darnold prove it again. And if he doesn't prove it again, then they'll get JJ McCarthy in there. McCarthy just doesn't make enough money. They could have McCarthy and Darnold on the same team. So I would not trade J.J. McCarthy. Now, maybe the Vikings are in a situation where they need somebody, and McCarthy's absolutely going to get them back a first-round pick. So maybe they just think Darnold's the guy. He's still in his 20s. We're going to sign him long-term, and he's going to be the guy. As we talk about all the time, during the regular season, that's great. Have all the numbers, do all the things that you do, impress everybody else. Regular season is fine. But you don't go down in history because of the regular season. Now, I know there's records that are set. He's got the most passing yards and touchdowns. I don't mean that. I mean, if you want to have a legacy, it's all done in the playoffs, and that's good or bad. You can't win. You go back to teams like the Bills or the Vikings or any of those teams that never won Super Bowls, despite the fact that they've been to 4 or 5 of them. Then you get branded that certain way, like Jim Kelly, for example. And this is where I go into quarterbacks again. Bruce Smith doesn't get branded the way that Jim Kelly does, as far as the Bills are concerned. You were the quarterback of that team, and you couldn't win a Super Bowl. That's on you. So Sam Darnold had a great regular season. Can Sam Darnold be great in the playoffs? That will be the measure of a man. If he struggles tonight, I'll say this, that we'll talk about this tomorrow too. If he struggles tonight against the Rams and Minnesota after a 14-3 regular season, and Darnold stinks, it will come up again. Is he the guy? Now, do I think that's going to come up within the Vikings front office? I don't think so. But I certainly think someone around a big mahogany table, like I'm always talking about when teams get together in the offseason, no matter the sport. It's always a big mahogany table. I don't know why. But okay, there you go. Mario just said it. Good morning. Saw on the herd McCarthy out in Dallas. That's why I have the thank you for that. That's why I have the I have Twitter/X up here. Somebody check that. And I'm sure you're right. Believe me, but I haven't checked anything. But yeah, as far as McCarthy is concerned, let me see here. So here you go. Jordan Schultz says Bill Belichick would have been interested in the Cowboys job, and it's believed Dallas would have been interested in him. No, they wouldn't have, Jordan, but thanks for asking. Had he known the position would become available, Belichick and his camp never received any indication, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, McCarthy is out in Dallas. They did him a disservice, though, because what happens is that you fire him right away so that you can start looking. And that's, again, this is a dumb Jerry Jones thing, which is fine. We're sitting in the Bay Area and we don't care. But look at all these teams who have had all these interviews so far, and now Dallas jumps into the fray. And I'll make one prediction. It says Jerry Jones didn't allow Mike McCarthy to interview for the Bears head coaching job, only to fire him days later. That's a great point. So the Bears wanted to talk to Mike McCarthy. Jerry Jones says no, and then a couple of days later he fires him. That does come back to you as an owner of a team. I'll make you one prediction. Again, another one, which will probably not come true. Actually, this one will. He's not going to hire somebody high profile. So I got to go back and look who's been hired. Now, is Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of the Lions, high profile? No, I think that, again, he can control a guy like Ben Johnson. I'm saying he wouldn't have hired Belichick. Give me another big name guy that is out there. He's not going to hire a big name guy. That might be a job that Robert Saleh goes to. And I'm not saying that Robert Saleh isn't high profile to a certain extent, but I do know that Jerry Jones, a guy like that, could go to the defensive side of the ball. Remember, what happens a lot of times when a coach gets fired? Who's the next coach? Somebody very, very different. Well, Mike McCarthy is kind of I'm not going to say I was going to say from a physical standpoint, he couldn't be a lot. He's very different from Robert Saleh, but also offensive guy to defensive guy, very disciplined and organized guy. McCarthy's not necessarily known that way. So I could see the Cowboys, and I haven't seen any list whatsoever on who is interested or who the Cowboys are interested in. And everybody thinks that the Cowboys job would be a great job. I'm here to tell you, and it's not just because I work there. Jerry Jones wants the spotlight. Jerry Jones wants the credit. Jerry Jones doesn't want any of the blame. So that's what you're walking into. And as you just saw right there, Mike McCarthy wanted to interview for the Bears job, and he said no. It's a circus. And living in Dallas, you are under this intense microscope. And the other reality of the Cowboys is that they don't have a lot of talent. This is where we can go back to Brock Purdy on this. They overpaid for Dak Prescott. They decided CeeDee Lamb was worth a boatload of money, which I'm not saying is not. But then what has happened there? And this is where the fear is for giving Brock all this money, which is we have paid so much for the quarterback and the receiver, and they did that with Brandon Ayuk, which I believe is a mistake or was a mistake. But now they can't afford everybody around them. They're even talking about maybe we trade Micah Parsons. Are you insane? Micah Parsons is the best player on your team, and it's not even close. Like, I like CeeDee Lamb, But if you look value, the player, the value, throw everything in there. Micah Parsons is a game wrecker. Every team in the league would want Micah Parsons. Not every team wants Dak Prescott. Not every team wants CeeDee Lamb. Every team in the league wants Micah Parsons. He would never get traded to the 49ers, but if the Cowboys, just for the sake, and I know we kind of flipped this conversation from they need a head coach to Micah Parsons, but if Micah Parsons is on the block, the 49ers, I would have no problem with them giving up like 2 number ones, even the Trey Lance package. Like, you want to give me Micah Parsons next to Nick Bosa? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll do that. He's one of the biggest game wreckers in the league, and they were talking about potentially not keeping him because they kept Dak and they kept CeeDee Lamb, and there's all these rumors that I think are unfounded that are saying, hey, they may have to move this guy. It's like, no. That's when you start to make the major mistakes. So anyway, thank you so much for keeping me up to date on what's going on as far as the Cowboys are concerned. That's an interesting one, because what happens is that people think that that's a very desirable position, and I'm not saying that they won't get somebody decent, but I'll tell you this, they're not going to get the highest profile guy. So, but I think Saleh could be in an interesting spot there. Ooh, there's an interesting one, Gizmo. I've got very good insight into this. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all here. Gizmo says Deion to the Cowboys. So let me give you a real quick. I hope you care about this. Real quick story on Deion Sanders. You'll find this to be rather funny. So when I was there, and I don't know if there's somebody like this in the Bay Area as far as the 49ers, but what happens is, and I think you know this, but I'll just kind of remind you, and then I'm going to give you a great story on this. So where these players have their greatest successes is where they want to stay. And I mean, from a career standpoint, because everybody knows them. So Steve Young stays around here, and Ronnie Lott stays around here, and Joe Montana stays around here, and all these guys, because that's where they're best known. So that serves their business interests best. Everybody knows you. So let's stay here, because if Steve Young went off to, I don't know, Southern California, a lot of people would know Steve Young, but he's going to have his best success here because everybody remembers him as the quarterback. And now he doesn't need that at all, because he's so great at what he does. And he's spun that off into a business sense that he doesn't need it now, but at the beginning you do. So a lot of these guys will stay where they had their most success because that helps them post-career. Pretty obvious, but I'm just letting you know. It's going to be the setup for the story. So I'm working in Dallas in, I don't know, what is this, 07, 08, something in this in that neighborhood, in that ballpark. And I think I've told you this, but it's a great story. Nate Newton, you probably remember this, the offensive lineman for the Cowboys, gets busted a couple of times for weed, like 200 pounds of weed in a van, and then he did it again. Well, I think he got bailed out of jail. He did it again, got busted again. So Deion, I was running a radio station in Dallas owned by ESPN, and Deion comes to me and says, we set up a meeting and we're having lunch, and Deion says, look, Nate Newton needs a second chance. If you can give him a second chance, then I'll do stuff for your radio station free of charge. I'll come in, I'll do stuff, I'll come on shows, all these different things, but if you give Nate a chance. Deion's a really good guy. And so I said, okay, we'll give Nate Newton a shot, because no one was going to give Nate Newton a shot. So we do. And Nate's great. He's doing pregame, postgame. You remember him, big number 61, played against the Niners all the time. So we give Nate a shot, and he's tremendous. And if you remember back in those days, I mean, the guy had a gregarious personality. He was super funny. Madden loved him. He was always on the all Madden team. Hilarious guy. So he was great. By the way, lost a ton of weight, so he didn't look anything like that. And so my whole point is that then Deion comes back to me and he says, look, I want to do a show in which I do a radio show, and just let me try this. And so ESPN is, listen, like I told you, ESPN owns the station I was working at in Dallas. And he comes in and does this hip hop show that I thought was absolutely great. But reality is that there's no way, remember, ESPN owned by Disney. Hi, everybody. We're really conservative. There's no way that they were going to allow this show that back in that time was kind of off the rails, which I thought was good. But he brings in a DJ, Michael Irvin's in there, all the old Cowboys. Deion was ready to impress. So he brings in Terrell Owens. He brings in Michael Irvin. He brings in, like, all the old Cowboys come. Nate Newton is in there, and it's hilarious. But there's like 10 guys talking at once. It was, we could have refined that thing down, and it would have been a really good show. But it did not end up working. But my point is that Deion was the ringleader of all those former Cowboys. He was the ringleader of all those former Cowboys. And Jerry Jones loved him, and all the players, and they all respected him. And, Deion had a religious angle to everything. And so he kind of just kept everybody together, for the lack of a better term, in that Cowboy group. So the reason I bring this up is because somebody said Deion to the Cowboys. While that may make sense on the surface, and by the way, Colorado got smoked in their bowl game. He got off to the great start last year, wasn't very good. I don't know how good of a coach Deion Sanders is. We'll find out, because both of his sons, and Shedeur particularly, he's going to be, I think, undeservedly, but he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So we'll see what he can do, and we'll see if Deion can really coach, and if Deion really wants to hang around in the era of the NIL. But again, that's all irrelevant to the point, because this goes back to could Deion be the head coach of the Cowboys? And while I think he pulls everybody together, and I think he is a real leader of men and all these different things, and he is far different away from the spotlight that he is in it. So if Deion was like he is in front of the camera 24/7, 365, he wouldn't have enough energy to get through the day. He's not like that all the time. But it goes back to my whole thing on Jerry Jones, which is he doesn't want to share the spotlight. Do you think Deion Sanders wants to share the spotlight? Like both those guys, like, no, it's mine. No, it's mine. They'd be yanking the spotlight back and forth. There's just, as much as Jerry Jones, and this is the reason I told you the story, the reason why, as much as Jerry Jones respects Deion Sanders and knows that Deion Sanders is a leader of men, and Deion Sanders has pulled those Cowboys together for a long time, all those guys that stay down there because that's where their success was in their careers. Now, I'm not talking about a Troy Aikman or somebody like that, but there's just a lot of former Cowboys who really look up to Deion Sanders even to this day. And he is a great leader of men. I don't think he's a great football coach, but I think he's a great leader of men. I think he's a great motivator. I think it would be a major problem if he was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, but it's not going to happen because Jerry Jones is an egomaniac. And Jerry Jones, twice in his tenure as the head coach of the Cowboys, hired high-profile coaches. Once he hired Jimmy Johnson, and that was right out of the gate, and they had a ton of success. And then when he had to share that success with Jimmy Johnson, he was out. And then Bill Parcells, and that's when I was down there, when Bill Parcells was the head coach, same kind of thing. They were having okay success, not great success. But then Jerry Jones, and I don't have it right in front of me, but it went like Wade Phillips and all these different Jason Garrett, those kind of guys who were like, gosh, I'm really thankful to have the job. And Jerry still could control the team, have the spotlight. Everything looked like Jerry was running the show, even though, to be honest, Stephen Jones's kid, one of his kids, is running the show, and Jerry's just out in front of people and in front of cameras. That's probably more than you wanted to know about the Cowboys. But the Cowboys' job is open, which means EB says, finish your story, get to the end. You're right. I'm talking Cowboys, and probably a lot of people don't care about the Cowboys that are listening or watching, but it's going to be the major story for the next 2 or 3 days. And I tell it because you're going to be more informed and smarter, because when they bring up certain names, and they will on ESPN, and they're going to be major names, and Deion is going to be one of those. So I forgot who brought that up. I think it was Gizmo was the one who brought it up. You get the credit. But when people are going to bring up those big names, you will know better. Now, if it does come in fact that they hire a high-profile coach, then I will say I was wrong, but I don't believe that I am. I think that they're not going to hire a big-name coach because Jerry Jones cannot play well with others. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. All right, let me get to some other things here as I try to straighten this whole thing out. Let me get to what else do we have to talk? We have a lot more to talk about today, but I'll try to skip through some of the things. Oh, let me hit a couple of baseball notes. You guys care at all about what's going on baseball-wise? And again, let me go through the chalkboard. So playoffs we've hit. Monday Night Football tonight is Rams and Vikings. Playoff quarterbacks we discussed ad nauseum because we compared Brock to all these quarterbacks. 49ers versus, I guess we didn't get to that as much. NIL, I have a great NIL story, but which I'm not sure you'll care about. And I've already given so many stories out today that I'll leave it up to you if you want me to tell it or not. Sasaki, you probably want to get to. So let me, and I'll still answer obviously football questions, but let me just further this to a couple of things that I put on the chalkboard that I try to get to because I said I would. Now, this doesn't mean, because again, let's go back to a premise of the show, which is who cares about lists and who cares about because you're going to be a lot happier in your life and you can do whatever you want. But I'm just giving you a small suggestion that if you say, I don't care about, like in 2025, if you say to yourself, I don't care about lists anymore. I don't care about what so-and-so said about so-and-so, like all those kind of things. I used to get angry when it was like Stephen A said something about somebody or Kendrick Perkins said something about somebody. Like, I live a much more calm life when I just say, I don't care about what someone's list is, and I don't care about what somebody said about somebody, unless they have a ton of credibility, a front office type or something. But when it's just for clicks and it's just that car wash on ESPN or any of those talking head shows, I don't care. I don't care what anybody's list is. So maybe this is just, and I don't know whose list this is, but as you see on your screen there, it says ranking the teams who need Roki Sasaki the most: Padres, Giants, Cubs, Mets, Yankees, Rangers, Dodgers, and they're right last. But did the Giants need him? Probably, and I think they need him more than the Padres. But the only reason I put that up there is it's an excuse to talk about Sasaki, which is today is the 13th, right? Today's the 13th of January. Yes, 13th of January. He is going to, or he's eligible to make a decision starting on the 15th. So our long national nightmare will be over soon, because I don't believe that Roki Sasaki, at least according to reports, and we've discussed this many times, we don't know. He's a little bit quirky of a guy, all those kind of things, but he is eligible to make his decision starting on January 15th, and I hope he does quickly. The fact that the Giants, though, have not gone out and signed a Jack Flaherty, maybe I'm just totally crazy here. You tell me. But the fact that the Giants haven't signed a Jack Flaherty or a backup plan, and I know that you're going, whoa, Lund, they signed Verlander. He's a flyer. I know the name is big, but you got to get it through mentally. And I believe me, I'm not calling you out. I'm saying I do too. I have to mentally get through the fact that it's Justin Verlander. Wow, that's a great, oh my God, but it's not. It's not Justin Verlander 10 years ago. It's Justin Verlander, going to be 42 years old. It's a flyer. He could be anywhere from the 3rd to the 5th starter on the Giants. Maybe even the 2nd if it's just crazy from 2022. But in my mind, if Justin Verlander, I don't know, throws 80 or 90 innings, goes 7-3 with a 3.84 ERA, I'd say that that's pretty good. Now you're gonna keep this. Or actually, you know what? I'll write that down. Let me think about it a little bit more, just because I know I'm going to get railed if this becomes incorrect. Yeah, like 7-3, 8-4, something in that range. Throws 90 to 100 innings. Has an ERA under 4. I would say that would be a successful signing, and that doesn't sound very Justin Verlander-like. It's just he's 42 years old, Father Time's undefeated. He's had the arm injuries, but a neck injury. Neck is like, woo, that ended Joe Staley's career. Neck, you start messing with that kind of stuff. I don't know how he's going to bounce back. I have no idea. Good enough to where the Giants clearly, and they had to have given him a physical, so they must have thought something about, he looks like he might be pretty good. But he's a flyer. He's not like Justin Verlander 10 years ago. You put him in, he's the top of the rotation kind of a guy. It's hard to get through that mentally, but that is the case. So the fact that they haven't really, to me, made a monster move or anything means that I'm not saying they're going to get him. What I am saying, though, is they must get indications that they're not out of it. So there's a big difference between we're in it on Roki Sasaki and we're not out of it with Roki Sasaki, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I don't think they're out of it, or else I think we would have seen other moves, because Justin Verlander can't be it, right? Justin Verlander can't be it. And so the thought process has to be, well, Roki Sasaki is going to be really cheap. He's 23 years old. We've talked about it. It's international money. You don't need me to go down that road again. So they could go out and potentially get a Flaherty or something like that. And I don't know what your thought is on him, but they're waiting, I think, on Roki Sasaki to think, okay, do we have to go out and spend more money? Because where they are right now is they're kind of at a stopping point, because if Sasaki signs with the Giants, which again, I'm not saying he is, but if he does, then he's probably your 2. Ray goes down to your 3. Verlander's your 4. And then you fight it out with Harrison, Birdsong, the others for the 5. And you're going to go through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever starters in a season. And I'm not even talking about, bullpen games or anything like that. I'm just talking about regular guys in your rotation. There's going to be injuries and everything else, especially with older guys. Younger guys are going to put on a innings limit, all those kind of things. So the fact that they're kind of at a standstill right now lets me believe that they think they're not out of it, which is not to say that they're going to get him. It's just, I think that that's a good sign if you're a Giants fan. Could be wrong. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of cool, and this will put you in a good mood if you're a Giants fan today. There you go. This is Baseball America. And so there are certain places that come out with their rankings, and it certainly doesn't mean that Bryce Eldridge is going to be great. It just means Baseball America's got some credibility, and that's pretty cool. Nick Kurtz is a guy that the A's just picked up. Jack Caglianone's a guy that was just in the draft too from Kansas City. Some of the other guys I'm not as familiar with, but there you go. The top first base prospect in baseball, for the 2025 season, is Bryce Eldridge. Pretty cool. So hopefully he comes through with that, because we've talked about Pete Alonso a ton, and I don't think he's coming here. I've said that from the beginning. I think that he's going to end up back in New York. So just a quick, I know it's Monday. I know there's tons of NFL. I know that's what we're talking about for the most part today, but I just wanted to put two things in there on Wednesday, maybe Thursday, but at some point this week, we're going to know Sasaki, so we can stop talking about that one way or the other. And then it's pretty cool that Bryce Eldridge is the number one prospect at first base in all of baseball. Have I hit everything, at least before I go back out to the comments and the thoughts? Have I at least hit everything on the chalkboard today? Playoffs, Monday Night Football between the Vikings and the Rams tonight in Arizona. Brock versus the other playoff quarterbacks. That's what that means. We played Chris Sims a little bit earlier. He's under the illusion that you could possibly pay Brock Purdy in the range of $25 to $30 million, which, to be honest with you, and I say dumb stuff all the time, and I really don't like to say that somebody says something dumb, because then I say something dumb, which is inevitable. I probably say 10 dumb things during the show. It just is. It's inevitable. Where later on, I'll be watching the show where clips or something, I'm like, not only was that stupid, but the way I said it was dumb. But for Chris Sims to say that the 49ers would somehow pay Brock Purdy $25 to $30 million, it's just stupid, especially for a guy who played the game and understands how this thing works. The 49ers versus what that is just the rest of the teams in the league. And I guess I didn't get into that a ton today. And what I mean by that is that when I watch a playoff game, just like you watch a playoff game, and I think this is how we're wired as fans, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is I think to myself, how far away is my team? So I don't own the 49ers. They're not my team. They're Jed York's team. But as a fan of a team, how far is my team away from this stage? And as far as the 49ers, to me, it's just injuries. So as we talk about all the, throughout the entire season, what went wrong, well, number one is injuries, and that's not an excuse. So if they're a healthy team, are they better than Tampa? Yes. If they're a healthy team, are they better than Washington? Yes. If they're a healthy team, are they better than Houston? Yes. You can disagree with me on this. I'm just simply, that was what was going through my mind as I'm watching teams over the weekend. If they're a healthy team, are they better than the Chargers? Yes. Now they're not they're not in the realm to me right now, even when healthy. Okay, I'm going to make the 49ers they're healthy. I just gave a magic spell. That's what that was. Pew! Healthy. They're healthy. Generally healthy, because in the NFL, you're not ever healthy. But they're generally healthy. Give them general health. They're not better than the Ravens. They're not better than the Chiefs. They're not better than the Bills. Who else? Probably not better than the Vikings. The Vikings kicked their ass earlier this season. So they're not better than the Lions, right? So what's that, 5 teams I just mentioned? So they're not better than, say, 5 teams that were in the playoffs. In fact, let me just pop this up really quick to just make sure. Let me pop this thing up. All right. So now we have a visual to go along with this thing. They're better than Denver. They're not better than Buffalo. They're better than the Steelers. They're not better than the Ravens. I'm just on the left side of the bracket there. Then you go to the NFC, which is really what you care about. Are they as good as Green Bay? I think they're as good as Green Bay when healthy, maybe better. Are they as good as Philadelphia? Not right now. Washington, yes, I think they're better. Detroit, no. Who else do we have on the NFC? Tampa Bay, they're better than Tampa when healthy. The Vikings, no. The Rams, debatable. Probably better than the Rams when healthy. Because remember, I just did that thing where I magically gave them health, general health. So as I'm watching those games yesterday, I'm thinking they're not that far away, and there's moves they have to make, and we've ad nauseum talked about the quarterback and all those kind of things. But as I'm watching the games, I'm thinking with health, they're a playoff team. Now, when I look at the Warriors, and I say if I looked at the Warriors versus teams, they are the 10th place team in the Western Conference. The Warriors are about the 20th best team in the NBA, and that's not a fun place to be. The Giants, the same thing. When I watch the Major League Baseball playoffs, I don't see the Giants being anywhere close to those playoff teams. They would be the worst team in the playoffs. The 49ers would not with general health. And the NFL is far different because you cannot count on health, as we know through many, many years. But certainly this year, if you needed to be reminded, they're not healthy. But so I look at the other teams in the Bay Area, and if you're a hockey fan or something, the Sharks are completely rebuilding. So when you look at the playoffs, is my team right there? They're pretty darn close. So that was what I meant by 49ers versus, and you can disagree with that. Completely. All right, let me get out to some comments and thoughts before I may get to the sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol, unless somebody sends me off on some sort of a tangent, which is easily able to be done. Let's see. Tacky, are you talking about Eric Burns? We can have Eric Burns on the show anytime. He's awesome. He is a great guy. Yeah, get Eric Burns or Franzen on if you can. Baseball season almost here. Yeah, in fact, I was just talking. There you go, senior softball games. I was just talking to Kevin Franzen, and as soon as I do think that there's good baseball talk, like let's say Sasaki for some reason chose the Giants. Believe me, we'll go hardcore baseball, and what that means with some guys who are really, really good. And I'm just kind of waiting for the time there. Tart, it is good to see you. Sims is a hater because he sucked as a QB. I don't know. I mean, look, I'm all cool with having an opinion as far as Chris Sims. If you haven't heard the Chris Sims and you want me to play it again, let me know. If you have been here for the entire show and you don't want to hear it again, that's fine. It is an interesting thought, and he's just getting regular life confused with sports life. And for a guy whose dad was a quarterback in the NFL, and he was a quarterback in the NFL, and he's best friends with Kyle Shanahan, he knows better than what he said, which makes me believe that he's saying it for clicks, and I hate that. I hate that. Like, we're all in the business now on the media side it's clicks and there's all these things, but when it's blatant, like the ESPN shows in the morning and all the different things and this tight rotation that they play, and it's only about Dak and it's only about LeBron and this summer because Brock Purdy is the next quarterback to be up for a big contract, and they love talking quarterbacks. It's going to be Brock until he signs. It's just that's the way it goes. But I think that if you talk in a way that is compelling, even if you are not so much enthralled with the topic that is being discussed, it can be good depending on who's telling the stories and who's talking about it. And it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 topics the same way over and over and over again. So are there enough new people in the room right now that want to see or hear what Chris Sims said? Because that's going to send us on a completely different tangent all over again. Jacob says, if Sasaki signs here, London Kruger would do an all-nighter on it. The only reason I bring it up is because that's a game changer. Now, do I know much about Sasaki? I'm going to be 100% honest with you here. I saw him obviously pitch like you did in the World Baseball Classic, so I know that. But a lot of people are like, this guy is the next, and they're even saying that he's not completely refined at the age of 23. They're just like, this guy, he's still got a long way to go. So if that's the case, and Sasaki at 23 is really, really good, and some people have kind of compared him to Yu Darvish, who is his idol, and he's with the Padres, which is, I believe that he's going to go to the Padres. I do. I don't think he's going to the Dodgers, which means he's going to the Dodgers. I don't think he's going to the Dodgers. I think he's going to the Padres because of the respect he has for Yu Darvish. But as we've said, we have no idea what this guy's going to do, and he's totally different. But that would, to me, if they got Sasaki, if we could just dream for a second, go into this dreamland, woo, if they got Sasaki, that would change their offseason. I mean, believe me, I think Adames is the best get. But now you're looking at the pitching staff. I think this guy's would be their number 2 starter because I don't trust it to be Ray. And then the flyer on Justin Verlander makes more sense. And then Harrison and Birdsong can kind of, again, be brought up at their own pace. And then you're going, okay. Because that's what you have to do in this division. And we know this about the Giants, but I'm going to remind you, they're never going to win because of the sticks. They're going to win because of the pitching. And that's what drives you crazy is just get the best. And I want to see Tanner Scott. And I want to see bullpen. I want to see all this. I want them to just hammer pitching. So to me, it's like, yeah, okay. A bunch of people have been there for a while. Like, don't play Sims again. He's a jackass. So that's cool. Like I said, I only am here to listen to what you say. So if you say you don't want to hear Chris Sims again, do you want to see Zane Gonzalez scratch his head again? I've got that. But most people do not want to see Chris Sims again. So, okay. That's fine. I won't play it. But yeah, it's for a guy who knows the league for as well as he does as a player, as his dad being a player and everything else, to have him say, and this is just as effective as playing it, he basically said he would not pay Brock Purdy market and he would try to pay him like $25 to $30 million. And I'm like, dude, I get lowballing guys. I get you're the man. I get that you might be competing against yourself for his services, but you can't do it. You can't offer him that kind of money. And if you do, his agent right away will say, we're not going to negotiate with you, trade my client, and there will be 10 teams lined up for Brock Purdy's services. That's just a fact. In fact, let me look up real quick teams. Let me look up Tankathon real quick, just really quick, because this will tell you. I'm going to pop this up for you too, so that you can see it and we can play along together. Let's see, NFL. All right, let me see the NFL order. All right, let me pop this up for you just so we can have a little bit of fun here. And I can show you the teams that would trade a first-round pick for Brock Purdy. I do believe this 100%. So let me go here, and then let me pull this up. Sorry it's taking so long, but we're going to do it fast. Yep, I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I don't share that window. This is the window. All right, so you can see that, right? So Tennessee's picking 1. They're taking a quarterback. Cleveland's 2. That's right, not New England. Cleveland's 2. They're saying they're not going to take a quarterback. But really, Deshaun Watson, who just ripped his Achilles again, I think Cleveland probably could take a quarterback. The Giants could use one at 3. So the top 2, even though this is not the way that it should work, any mock draft that you see that does not have Cam Ward first and Shedeur Sanders second, or vice versa, so the 2 quarterbacks going 1 and 2, is completely wrong. Even though they're not looked at that way from a talent standpoint, they'll have big boards and all these different guys like Mel Kiper and all these guys and Matt Miller and blah, blah, blah. Will have these boards. They're going 1 and 2. That's what quarterbacks do. So then look at 3. Giants need a quarterback. 4, 5 are okay. Vegas needs a quarterback at 6. Jets need one at 7. New Orleans needs one at 9. Dallas is going to take one. What else do we got? 14, 15. Who's in Indianapolis? Oh, yeah, they've got a quarterback. A young quarterback's not very good. But 15, they just took Penix. 16, they're fine. 17, they're fine. 18, Seattle could use a quarterback. I'm not going to go too far back. I don't need to go through the whole first round. Here's my point. That if the 49ers lowballed Brock Purdy to the point of Chris Sims' jackass statement that they should only pay him $25 to $30 million, the Giants would call, the Raiders would call, the Jets would call, the Saints would call. I don't know that the Giants would give up 3. I doubt the Raiders would give up 6, but I think you'd start talking to the Jets at 7 and say, we'll give you 7 for Brock. I think the Saints would do 9 for Brock. And you might have to throw in an extra pick the other way. Like, okay, it's Brock and a 4 for the Saints, 9, something like that. But that's when you see a guy like that. Okay, let's stop sharing. When you see a guy like that who should know the league, like Chris Sims knows the league, to say that they're going to offer Brock Purdy $25 or $30 million, which, let's put this in perspective, you and I would be like, oh my God, somebody's offering me $25 to $30 million. Are you insane? But the market is $55 million. It's what Tua got, Lawrence got. We saw Justin Herbert suck over the weekend for the Chargers. That's what he got. And I am starting to kind of sway towards that, even though I love his tools. He can throw it through a brick wall. He's starting to get that reputation of, man, he's got all the tools, but he can't win in the playoffs. And Harbaugh will help him. But 4 interceptions, there's nothing positive you could say about Justin Herbert. As much as I like him and his physical skills, he cost him that game. Now, give Houston credit, but they lost, 32-12? He absolutely sucked ass in that game. That's on him. And so again, you can win a game against, I don't know, give me any team, the Cardinals in week 4, and throw for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. No one's going to remember it. How did you do in that playoff game against Houston? Oh, you threw 4 interceptions. That's how you're remembered. That's the NFL. That's how you're remembered. So all those teams when we just did Tankathon there, a lot of those teams, not the Giants at 3, probably not the Raiders at 6, although if I'm the Raiders, you want to give me Brock Purdy for the 6th overall pick when I don't know who they're going to take. I mean, they could use an edge rusher. There's a lot of different guys they could use. But remember, here's something interesting. This just popped into my head. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying in Chris Sims' weird world in which the 49ers would offer Brock Purdy $25 to $30 million, Tom Brady's been very effusive in the praise of one Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy started his first game against who? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I was I went to the Tampa Bay side of things because I wanted to hear how pissed off Brady was going to be, and every other word out of his mouth was an F-bomb after that game. But he likes himself some Brock Purdy. Would the Raiders give 6 to the Niners? Now you need a quarterback. See, that becomes the problem. This is where Chris Sims is on crack. All right, Chris, we're going to offer him $25 to $30 million at your advice. His agent vomits on the floor and says, we're done talking to you. If you think he's worth $25 to $30 million, you need to trade my client. Now, if they walk in there and say, hey, we think Brock's 35, 40 a year, that's still low, but you could that's a negotiating point. And you know this, you know business. But you walk in there and say 25 to 30 when the guy's worth probably 55 when they finish the negotiations. You go 25 or 30, the agent's just going to say, just trade my guy. And going back to what Chris Sims says, well, you're competing against yourself. Well, then all those teams, like I said, a number of teams in the top 10, I'd say the Saints at 9 and the Jets at 7 for sure, would call the 49ers because, well, the agent would actually call those teams and say, hey, the 49ers just offered my client $25 to $30 million. You would top that, right? And the desperate Jets who just got out of the business of being with Aaron Rodgers, no thanks, and the Saints, completely sick of being in the business with Derek Carr, would say, yeah, we'll do that. We'll give him 40, 50, $55 million. No problem. First round pick to the 49ers. Now, again, that sounds steep to me, a top 10 pick. But remember, the difference between, and you got to remember this as draft picks, go back through the history of time at the quarterback position or any position in the first round. It's a 50-50 shot. I know that's crazy to say. It's a 50-50 shot. So you want 50-50 with one of these quarterbacks coming out of the draft going, I hope this guy's good. Remember when Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be awesome? He was supposed to be it. Andrew Luck was going to the Hall of Fame. Now, injuries took Andrew Luck, not performance, but still, you can't count on this. And you go through the history of time at the position, it's 50-50 even in the first round. So now Brock Purdy, while he's not Josh Allen, as we've discussed, and Lamar Jackson, he's not those guys, but he's not a bust. So you go top 10. Can you win with Brock Purdy, as Kyle Shanahan said? And look, we're in fantasy land right now. He's not going anywhere. But I'm doing this based on the premise of Chris Sims saying that you're bidding against yourself and you can offer Brock $25 to $30 million. His agent's on the phone to the Saints picking at 9 going, will you give him $40 million, $50 million, $55? The Saints say yes because they know what it's like to be a team without a quarterback. You're not in the ball game. Look at the teams in the playoffs and look at the teams that are left, and it's just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Probably the championship games in the AFC, they're going to feature the final two standing are going to be Mahomes and either Allen or Jackson. That's going to be the AFC. The NFC, and give Jared Goff his flowers, the NFC is probably going to be, and it's not as profound in the NFC because the AFC quarterbacks are the top 3 quarterbacks in the league outside of Burrow. Burrow's the only great quarterback, really, truly great quarterback who's not in the playoffs. The rest of them are in the playoffs. And the NFC will probably come down to Jared Goff, and it could come down to Darnold. It could come down to Jalen Hurts, who I don't think is great right now, but has been in the past. So it's not as profound in the NFC. There's no doubt about it. But you have to have a good one at least to be in the conversation, to be at this point of the season, and specifically going into AFC and NFC championship games. You have to be. You have to have one of those guys. So, I mean, even look at Daniels right now for Washington. They went from a crap team, garbage, a mess, Daniel Snyder, and look, the new ownership has helped. All these kind of things, cleaning house. Bob Myers was part of it. They have all these different guys. As I've said before, in business, no matter what you do, from the top down, the Raiders will never win with Mark Davis. Never, never, never. I don't care if Tom Brady comes in there is running everything. They're never going to win with Mark Davis. Not at a high level. It starts at the top. And so Washington has figured that part out, but then they get Jayden Daniels. All of a sudden, they're going to the second round of the playoffs. They're going to the divisional in the playoffs. It matters that much. So, again, Sims saying $25 to $30 million, they'd be on the phone with 10 teams who would probably give up a first-round pick. And do I think that they could get just this, like Saints? I'm just concentrating on Saints, Jets at 7, Saints at 9. Would one of those teams say, yeah, Brock and a 1? Now, would you have to give them a 4 back? Potentially. But you could do that, and that's only in response to Sims saying you're bidding against yourself. No, you're not. I think there'd be 10 teams, as I said there, from the Tankathon that would absolutely positively say, I will. I'll be in the Brock Purdy business, no problem whatsoever. I'll be there. I'll do that. Let me go back to Tankathon for a minute. Vegas would, Jets would, Saints would, Indy, but they got a guy. The Seahawks would at 18. They'd never trade with him. They'd be in the business. 20. You don't think Pittsburgh would give up 21 for Brock Purdy in a second? Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, their whole season was submarine by what? They've got a very good young offensive line. They have a really good defense. What don't they have? They don't have a quarterback. The Rams at 22 with Stafford getting older, they'd give you their 1. Who else do we got down there? Washington, Baltimore. See, all those teams, though, you get to the really good teams, they don't need a quarterback. Look at the teams that are left in the playoffs right there. Houston, 25. They got a quarterback. 26 has a quarterback. 27 has a quarterback. 28 had a great season. I don't know how great Darnold's going to be long-term. 29, 30, 31, and 32 all are set at quarterback. I know that's an oversimplification of what the game is. There's a lot more to it, but you don't have a great one. You already know this, dude. I'm preaching to the choir. You're like, duh. You got to have a quarterback. You're telling us you need a quarterback. Gee, thanks for letting, we got up in the morning early for you and you told us we needed a quarterback. Thank you. Great insight, Lund. That's a good point. You're probably thinking that. What else do we have here? Anybody else before we move on to a sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol? And I will say that I do have a question for you when it comes to the caboose pistol, as we're 2 hours into this thing already. Man, I'm just flying by. Anything else we've missed today? I know we've done a lot of Brock and a lot of NFL playoffs, but I do think that it was worth the time to do it. What do you think? Think that's good? Let's see. I'm looking. No, I don't have Pornhub up. I don't at all, Tacky. No. I could right now on my, I'll be honest with you. I have an email up. I have a couple of things that I use for the podcast up. I have YouTube up. I have X up. I have my email up, and I have Tankathon. That's it. That's what I got up. I'd share it with you if I had to. I got nothing to hide. Well, I do. I have skeletons in my closet. I've told you that a million times. Like all these no's. That was back to if they wanted to hear Chris Sims again. I'm not going to play it. I am not going to play it at all. All right, let's see. No, not X videos. I don't have any of that. Not that I know what X videos even is. I don't even know what you're talking about. All right, what else do we have today? Anything I missed? Was there anything over the weekend? And again, thank you so much for getting me caught up on the Cowboys news. I'm going to do a little deep dive into this. I'm going to laugh fairly hard when I see that people are going to connect all these big names to the Cowboys. Oh, get this. Here we go. According to Nick Wagner, who I'm a massive fan of, he does a tremendous job covering the 49ers, just like guys like Matt Barrows do and Matt Mayoko does, and guys, they all do such a really good job. Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich are considered the top candidates for the 49ers DC position. However, another name worth keeping an eye on is former New Orleans Saints head coach Dennis Allen. Please no. I've already told you this, and we don't need to go over it again. He's just a flatliner. I am not a fan of that. I've told you before that I like the guy jumping up and down and screaming and yelling. I think it's Saleh's job. If he wants the job, we've gone over the whole thing. I wouldn't do it if I were him. I would take the mental health time off. I would get paid by the Jets. He's going to do the DC job for free if he does it because of the offsets in the NFL, but that's just the way it goes. I really don't have an opinion on Jeff Ulbrich, to be honest. He was the DC of the Jets. The 49ers wanted to talk to him. He's a former linebacker with the 49ers. We all know that. Then he was a head coach of the Jets, and they absolutely went in the tank. I'm not basing my opinion on that because, as we've said, a lot of guys can be great coordinators and not be great head coaches. Ulbrich is that fiery defensive coordinator. So if they hire Ulbrich, I'll have an open mind on Ulbrich. I just don't know how good he is as a defensive coordinator. I don't know. They have a lot of talent in New York with the Jets. They had some injuries. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say that I was following the Jets on an everyday basis because Aaron Rodgers it was interesting for a minute, and then he made me want to vomit. And I didn't really want to follow along with what the Jets were doing. So I don't know how good Ulbrich is, but those are the guys that they're talking about. That's not really new news. I think, doesn't everybody agree that if Saleh wants the job, he's going to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers? I don't think there's a conversation there. And you and I have had this talk a lot. We try to, on the show, talk about things that I think are going to be relevant and interesting and fun or compelling or whatever the case may be, versus saying, I feel like we should talk about this. To me, there's no new news on the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And if Robert Saleh wants it, it's Robert Saleh's job. How could there be, like, the fact that they announced he was interviewed? What do you have to, why does he have to be interviewed? Like, hey, Robert, you still like defense? Yeah. You still want to be a coordinator? Yeah. If you were the defensive coordinator of the 49ers, what would you do? Go back and look at the tape when we went to the Super Bowl in 2019. Interview over. I don't need to do an interview with Robert Saleh. Maybe they just announced that. We've done an interview with Robert Saleh. I don't think we need to, do we? We need to do an interview with that guy? All right. Sorry. Shouldn't go on that tangent. All right. I have one thing to do because I'm going to play the Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol open for you. So let me get over to my stuff. And then I'm going to because we do run this show, I'm not going to say in a fully democratic way, but in a somewhat, because if enough people, I've told you this before, if enough people say I do like this or I don't like that, then I am going to adhere to those kind of things, because that's just kind of how I operate. If one guy says something, I don't necessarily know that I would change things, but if enough people do, then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to, do I not have oh, there it is right here. Okay, let me play this, and then I want to talk about something with you, so stay here.
John Lund Unleashed brings you the caboose pistol.
A female officer noticed the handle of a revolver sticking out from inside the woman.
What is the caboose pistol?
Did you say caboose pistol?
The old caboose pistol, everybody has one.
What better way to end the show than with a what the fuck was that?
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Good. I know some woman who could hide a machine gun in there. Yeah. I'm sorry, we're getting off track.
Just take it away,
Getting off
Lund,
track.
and leave me out of this, you weirdo.
All right, so if you watch or listen with any regularity, I like the caboose pistol. I think it's fun. I think over the years that we've been doing it for 15 years, we might have gone over the edge with like a dolphin and the relationship, or Danny My Anus, or I don't know. There's a number of different ones. The naked Bart guy. I mean, I think those stories are fun and funny. I like to leave people with a little bit of fun and a smile on their face. So I have adjusted the Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol to, I wouldn't call it a family friendly version, even though I joke about it being Sweet Clean Family Fun. It is probably not. I think I've told you the story before that my mom one time was supposed to, when we were over at 95.7, Pop and I were doing the show, and my mom was coming into town, and she was supposed to be at the radio. So we were doing the show, I guess we were doing it 10 to 2. It might have been 12 to 3, but we were doing it 10 to 2, I think, at that time. And she was supposed to be there around noon. And, we did the Caboose Pistol like 1:45 was the final segment of our show. And so she wasn't there at noon. Her plane was delayed. She gets there at 1:45 and comes walking in the studio. And I'm like, damn it. Because I had like 2 or 3 stories that were not something I wanted to talk about in front of my mom, but I'm a professional. We had said we were going to do the Caboose Pistol just because my mom was there. I mean, that's like you having your kids in the car and like, Lund, you don't care about my kids when you do the Caboose Pistol. Why the hell do you care about your mom? So we do it. It was funny. It was embarrassing. And it was so funny. I wish I had the audio to it, but she was like, I don't understand. And what is a Caboose Pistol? Can you explain this to me? And I'm like, no, I will not explain this to you. So I'll just pop this up, and then I want to tell you more of a story. I didn't even click on this story. I just saw the headline. Florida man arrested for allegedly making sexual contact with horse. I don't even know how you do that. Can I move this up? No, that's it. Now, that guy does look like a guy who would make sexual contact with a horse. I don't know how. Anyway, I didn't even click on the story. That's how much I've matured. Now, back in the day, I would probably find a video about this, and maybe I will, depending on what direction you push me here. But anyway, I'll call that the caboose. I didn't even read the story. I just saw the headline and went, what in the hell? What is wrong with people? A horse? Leave the horse alone. Leave him alone. All right. But that's not the story here. The story is, you tell me. You like the Caboose Pistol? Do you think it's too crass? Do you think I should adjust it? Because I've adjusted the Caboose Pistol over the years, where sometimes I'll have this story and it's like, you know what? I'm not that sophomoric anymore, even though I probably am. I'm not gonna bring that story to the people. So yeah, I don't know if that was in Florida or Oregon or wherever that was, but that does sound like a Florida story. So see, this is why I like the Caboose story. Mike says, don't you get kicked for trying that? Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So my question is this to you, all right? And you can hit me up right here on the chat line after the show. You can hit me up at John Lund Unleashed Pod. Whatever the case may be, however you want to do this. Hey, no. I didn't think I had this on. I didn't think I had this on repeat, but clearly I did. Stop it. All right. So, but my question is, do you like it? Should I pull it back? Should I not have it? Because I like to leave you something with, fun. And maybe I'll just do things that are more fun and less about a horse and a guy. That kind of a thing. Florida man arrested for whatever. But a guy did who I like, and it is on the show and is in the chat every single day, and a guy that I like to converse with, and he just hit me up and he said, look, love the show, love watching, really enjoy it. Everything's great. But he said, I've never really been a big fan of the Caboose Pistols. So, if enough people complain about it, like, do you think it's something you'll continue to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, again, the show is not fully democratic, but again, I'll be off the air in a second if people don't like what I'm doing enough. So and I've told you this before, if enough people say I don't like this, then yeah, it's a problem. If one guy says it, and I shouldn't say guy, one person says it, then okay, I'm looking at it. But if more and more come in, then I'm like, okay, that's something I might need to change. But it has been kind of a point of contention through the years, both in a positive sense and a negative sense. A lot of people have said, man, I listen every day for it. Some people say, some people say if it's not as crass, I'm okay with it. Like, I just kind of want to know where you are with it, because we're trying to evolve the show every single day. We're doing different things with the show every single day. And I am curious, because I definitely got this on the radio, both good and bad. It was one of those topics where it wasn't really down the middle. Nobody ever said to me, it's okay. Some people would say absolutely love it. Some people say absolutely hate it. So I'm just wondering. And I'll take everybody into consideration there, because one guy said it, but the only reason I'm bringing it up, normally if one guy says something, it doesn't really hit me at all. But this has been kind of a thing throughout the years that we've done it, and some people love it, some people hate it. So that's all. I like it. I think it's funny, as long as I don't go overboard with some of the stuff that I used to do, and I keep it, to a certain extent, because I think it's funny, and then you leave it with somebody, and then you tell your friends about a certain story and everything else, blah, blah, blah. So there you go. Joy, who's one of my favorites, says, my brother worked my mind years ago. I'm okay with it. I like it. I think it's funny. Let's put it this way. If I don't call it that, which I love calling it that, then I'll still do it in some way, shape, or form, but maybe I'll just find other ways, because there are so many funny and good stories and funny stories. And the other thing, and I tell you this all the time, I love playing the news stories, so that when we hear the news stories of the people trying to tap dance around all the terms that they've got to use in some of these stories, is actually funnier than the story itself a lot of times. So I'm not going to stop doing that, because that makes me have fun. I enjoy that. And that's a little bit to give back to everything that I give everyone for all these hours every day. All right. You know what? One more quick thing. Sorry. Steve says, just look at NFL hiring rules. Kyle can just name anyone without any rules. Head coaches. Yeah. The one thing that you're talking about there, Steve, that I haven't gotten to the bottom of, and I need to get to the bottom of, that when Kyle and John had their press conference last Thursday, and he said that he was going to name Clay Kubiak the offensive coordinator. Then later they said that he couldn't be the offensive coordinator. I'm thinking, wait a minute. You can't take a guy in-house that you like, that's been working with you, and you have a working relationship and confidence in, and you can't just say he's the offensive coordinator. I guess they have to go through the Rooney Rule with that as well, which I have no issue with whatsoever. I'm just simply saying that can he not name him at all? I mean, I think that's crazy, because that's one of I've been pounding that drum for a long time to say, hey, Kyle needs someone in that room offensively, as good as they are offensively and can be with health. He's got to have somebody he has confidence in, and clearly he has confidence in Clay Kubiak, and it's probably not very easy to get Kyle Shanahan's confidence when it comes to offense. So, all right, anything else today? Great chat today. Good to see everybody. Happy Monday to everybody. Did everybody have a great weekend? I guess I'll have to do more weekend talk tomorrow, because I did get up to Hanson's and picked up my my espresso vodka and had a couple of drinks up there and met some friends, and some listeners stopped by, and we just had a really good time. Great time had by all. If I'm not as sharp, I'm going to be completely honest with you. If I'm not as sharp today, I overdid it yesterday. And I'm to the point where in my life where if I go 2 straight days of really getting after it, like yesterday, I watched all the games, I did everything, but I did not move from this couch in my studio. And I did a lot of the work from the couch, like putting my iPad up and like typing upside down, because I just didn't want to get up. So I'm feeling better today. I'm feeling very, very good today. But I think I'll be better tomorrow, to be honest. Pine Needle, are you saying you're hungover or I'm hungover? Could you tell that I was? I wasn't today, but I definitely was not. I definitely was not good yesterday. Tacky, I'm glad you brought something up. I'm going to bring this up, and I keep saying I'm going to leave, and then I'm not. Where is that? Hello, John. You said you need a meetup in the East Bay. I am working with someone right now in which very, very soon we will be doing something cool like that. So if you would all come out, I will do it. But we are working on something, and I'm not just saying that. We are working on something that could happen very, very soon, and we're trying to dot I's and cross T's, and that would be a really cool thing to do. So I am over in the East Bay. I would go all over. It's not that I wouldn't go all over. I would. But there is one specifically in the East Bay that we're trying to put together right now. So there you go. Jacob says, damn, the wife called. Can we do the caboose pistol again? Yeah, like I said, my mom came in. I wish I could remember what story we were doing. And she had the most quizzical look on her face, like, what are you doing? Is this what you do for a living? I think she even said that to me. You do this for a living? People pay you to talk about this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't. Don't yell so loud. They might stop paying me. It's what they do. I don't know. It's crazy. All right. I think that's it. I think that's all for today. I had a great time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If I missed anything you said here, I will make sure to do better tomorrow. We did get through the chalkboard today, playoffs, Monday Night Football, Brock, Chris Sims, playoff QBs, 49ers versus, which means the other teams in the playoffs. I did not get to the NIL story tomorrow. I'll get to that. It's a good one, but we had so much going on today. Sasaki, 2 days from now is when he can absolutely positively, so maybe by the end of the week, we should know where he's going. Eldred's #1 first base prospect in baseball. The caboose pistol, I asked you to opine on that. I think we have hit everything. That's a pretty good Monday show, and we did it in about 2 hours and 16 minutes. There was a lot to get to today, just a ton to get to today, and I think we did a pretty good job in getting to it. Now, do remember, please make sure you subscribe. So it's at John Lund Unleashed Pod on YouTube. That is where we hang out on YouTube a lot. And I do not only do I do the 8 o'clock Pacific time show during the day. If news breaks, like Sasaki in the middle of the day, if that thing broke or anything else is breaking, we'll do shows in the middle of the day. Make sure you have your alerts on. Please give us a thumbs up and a like on this whole thing. We also, if you got to leave the show at any point, X you can take with you. Instagram, we're live there. And the podcast, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Spotify, Apple, etc. Anything else we need to hit you up on? That is about it. And again, I love feedback. So it's whether it's here, whether it's on YouTube, whatever it's on X, whatever, give us feedback on the show. We definitely love feedback so that we can be better for you. And I think that's about it. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Thank you for making the time. I know you got a lot of choices in where you can go to get your news, entertainment, and all those kind of things. So thank you for stopping by John Lund Unleashed for all of that. Have a wonderful Monday.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next show, although I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed YouTube and Twitch channels. Stream us live on Twitter/X at John Lund Radio and listen where you get your podcasts. John Lund Unleashed, weekdays at 8 a.m. when news breaks and whenever Lund can put down his drink.
A bottle of rum.
Now go be productive or something. Hanging out with Lund sure wasn't.
Goodbye.